Entertainment for all the family. Christmas Eve on BBC One. At 6:05, Kids International. At 6:35, Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Underwater adventure, complete with monsters. At 8:40, Terry and June.
Let's get stuck into turkey.
At 9:25, Oh Yes I Am, Oh No You're Not. A seasonal look at the great theatrical traditions of Christmas. At 10:20, Don't Lose Your Head.
You'll pay for that window! You'll pay for it, you hear?
Tremendous fun.
It could never have happened before the revolution.
At 11:50, the traditional Christmas liturgy. The Midnight Mass of the Nativity from the Church of Our Lady and St. Joseph, Hanwell. The start to a festival for all the family. Christmas Eve on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, it's time for another adventure in space and time with Peter Capaldi and the Police Box.
Quarantine session! What do you mean, oi, Mr. Quarantine session!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's almost Christmas, so grab yourself a mince pie, crack open the Baileys and ignore the utter tosh that's been scheduled on the other side. It's the Police Box Live. Tonight, our trial of Series 10 of Doctor Who concludes with 2017's Christmas special Twice Upon a Time, going before the court. Now, at the time this story originally went to air, in the real world, pop group S Club 7 signed a deal with the UK Port Authority to become the faces of their campaign to encourage increased business in British shipping in the post-Brexit environment. As a result, the faces of the Poptastic septuplet could be seen adorning billboards and advertising hoardings at any number of busy British ports, where vast amount of ships laden with containers and goods would set sail for the continent, all under their benevolent gaze. Talking of which, I'm joined tonight by two men who, much like any visitors to those ports at the time, are themselves no strangers to a long tug in front of a picture of Rachel Stevens. It's Dillon-Trenchard and David Cummings.
I thought for a minute we were going to be benevolent gays, so I was like, what?
You can be whatever you want to be. This is a safe space. Good evening, you two. How are you?
Hello.
Yeah. Every time you do those intros, I try and work out what the punchline is going to be, and I can never work it out. So, congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
That's all you should be proud of, the fact that I can't guess the punchline. Not the joke itself, just that I can't guess.
Okay, yeah. It's all I've got in my life, Dave. So, you know, I'll
You're saying that Lee's intros are very much like a clue from 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Yeah, they belong in the dusty bin. Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the Post Box Live. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that Cameron isn't here tonight, so we've gone to the Super Subs bench, and Pete Dillon-Trenchard has very kindly offered to step in and take his place tonight. So thanks very much for doing that, Pete.
Do I have to do my Scottish accent?
No, because that's just offensive.
Yeah, you can't do one anytime you want to try, because I don't know what that was, but it wasn't a Scottish accent.
Welsh, wasn't it, I think? Cameron isn't joining us tonight as he's double booked himself on his work's Christmas night out. Now, here at the Post Box, we like to maintain an air of easygoing, light-hearted entertainment. But such is the seriousness of Cam's lack of regard for this courtroom that we're going to be running a second poll alongside our episode vote tonight. So, Voting is now open. If you think that Cam should be stripped of his series champion title for plainly not being asked to turn up now he's got the series in the bag, you can go and cast your vote on Twitter. Go to @ThePolisBox or click on the link in the episode description. You get to decide where he's shorn of his title. We will reveal the results at the end of tonight's show. And that is not a joke. I have genuinely prepared the poll for this because I can do that because he's not here to defend himself.
Why
So
did
that
I
is now
delete Twitter
tweeted.
before now? Should have kept it.
It's no more than he deserves. He's going to desert us in our hour of need. Anyway, talking of eagle-eyed amongst you, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that once again we've thrown open the courtroom doors and we're welcoming in another pair of special guests tonight. So let's get on and introduce them. Joining Pete on the defence team tonight is a man who recently recreated a scene from Spearhead from Space on the streets of Ealing with stunning accuracy. Just wasn't the shop window dummy scene. Joining us fresh from his stint of community service after assaulting unsuspecting members of the public with our giant rubber octopus, making his Police Box debut, is the one and only Mr. Mark Harrison.
What an intro. Thank you very much. I've learned, I've changed, and thank you all for welcoming me back.
You've done your crime, you've done your time. You're a changed man. And joining Dave on the prosecution team tonight is a man of many talents, one of which is being an illustrator of all things Doctor Who. But will his arguments against Twice Upon a Time be sketchy? Helping us draw a line under Series 10 tonight, making his Police Box debut, is the one and only Mr. Dan Pinn.
Hello, thanks for having me. For ages, I think for about 7 months, this was the only thing I had booked in for the whole of December. So this has been a long time in the making. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
God help you if this is your Christmas night out.
Yes.
The next Christmas night out, yeah.
Okay, before we crack on with proceedings properly, it's time for this is the point in the show where right now you should go and make yourself a cup of tea and a biscuit if you haven't already done so. Because this is going to take a deep breath to get through. It's the series results so far. So, the return of Dr. Mysterio was a 50-50 result at the end of the poll, so the judge's decision found that not guilty. The pilot was next up. That was found not guilty by 75% to 25%. Smile was our first guilty of the series, 62% to 38%. Finis, next up in the courtroom, that was found not guilty by 89% to 11%. Then it was the turn of Knock Knock, which was not guilty by 72% to 28%. And Oxygen was next on trial. That was found not guilty by 69% to 31%. Then it was our Super Saturday, all free in one night. Extremis was found not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, 60 to 40%. Pyramid at the End of the World was our first guilty of the night. It was 67%, 33% guilty. And similarly, Live the Land was also guilty, 74% to 26%. Then, Empress of Mars, not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, 69% to 31%. Eaters of Light, not guilty, 65% to 35%. And last time round, in the company of Pete Lambert and Hannah Cooper, the series finale, World Enough in Time, The Doctor Falls, was found not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who by 89% to 11%, all of which means that Cameron is the series champion for now and leads the series 9-3 with our final trial remaining tonight. And brief.
See, I realised just after you started that it would have been really funny to interrupt you and keep scrolling across the bomb just to put you off your flow. And as soon as I realised that, I really wanted to do it. That was so
fun. To come back around.
I'm so glad you didn't do that because normally I have it written in a notepad in front of me and I didn't do it tonight, so I was just going off that. If you'd done that, it'd been me and you dead, Dave. Thank you for not doing that.
It's also my fault for picking this series. Because why
it's entirely your shoulders. Yep. Now that's out the way, let's get on with proceedings properly because it's time for the final time to go back to 2017, the rock and roll years. Will it be a case of glass half empty or glass half full tonight? Let's find out as we put Twice Upon a Time on trial.
Look through the window. Look through the window. Look through the window.
Twice Upon a Time was written by Stephen Moffat, directed by Rachel Talalay, and produced by Peter Bennett with music by Murray Gold. It starred Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, David Bradley as the First Doctor, and Pearl Mackie as Bill, with Matt Lucas as Nardole, Mark Gatiss as the Captain, Nikki Amuka Bird as Helen Clay, Toby Wittis as the German soldier, Lily Travers as Polly, Jared Garfield as Ben Jackson, Jenna Coleman as Clara Oswald, Nicholas Briggs as the voice of the Daleks, and it also introduced Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. It was broadcast on Christmas Day 2017, and the viewing figures were 7.9 million people overall after the first showing, and all the iPlayer stats and all that gubbins. Those are the cold, hard facts of the episode itself. One more thing remains. It's time to call this court to session.
This court is now in session.
The trial of Twice Upon a Time is now underway. Here's who's doing what tonight. Dave and Dan will be prosecuting Twice Upon a Time, and Pete and Mark will be defending it. Without any further ado, as I missed the button I'm supposed to press because it's live, of course, it's time for this.
This is the law, chapter 1.
Once again, we've thrown open the courtroom doors and invited you, the viewers, to take to the stand to give us your evidence in the trial of Twice Upon a Time. We've got quite a bit of it, so let's just crack on. First up tonight is our guest from our last episode, Hannah Cooper, who's going to give us her evidence in this cosy, Christmassy extravaganza. Hannah says, "What a pile of shit." It makes you wonder whether Moffat had actually watched many of the First Doctor stories. This version certainly wasn't going to tempt anyone else towards them. It's such an insult, utter misery for Christmas too. I'd feel better about the character of the Captain, except it's so clear Moffat's taken his last chance to write for a mate, and at this point there's been so much self-referential stuff in the show recently that it feels too indulgent, and the reveal elicits a groan more than a cheer.
Perfect. I take back everything I sent in those DMs after the last record, Hannah. I take it all back.
What?
Absolute Grinch.
Do you want to reveal the contents of all those DMs?
I mean, indulgence at Christmas.
Who'd have thought such a thing was possible?
Oh.
So there you go. Hannah's come out swinging, no holds barred on that one. Let's see what the
Can we
next.
just filter out all the other comments by Hartnell stands, please? You know,
We'll be left with nothing if we do that, Pete. Next up, let's see what Philip Cully's got to say about this. Philip says it's an abomination and one of the worst stories ever made.
oh, thank.
The First Doctor does not need to come back. Especially not as a sexist bigot who apparently threatens women with a spanking. Bradley was great as Hartnell was an adventure in space and time, but his First Doctor sucks. Well, there you go.
This is what's wrong with social media.
Just specifically this. I mean, yeah, I'll leave it to my learned colleague. I don't have anything else to add to that. We save it to the statements. We save it to the defence.
Okay, so we're not off to the greatest. Admittedly, we're not off to the greatest start for the defence. I mean, surely the next contributor tonight will redress that balance somewhat. It's Paul Quinn. Paul says absolute fucking shite. He might as well have dug up William Hartnell's corpse and dragged it through the streets of Cardiff while pissed up rugby fans shat on it and defiled it. It wouldn't have been much worse as to what Moffat does to the First Doctor in this pile of self-indulgent wank juice.
But the First Doctor's the thing that you sit through to get to the second to 14th Doctors.
Paul,
I mean, at least there was like nice and low key. There's no overstatement in these so far, is there?
It's all very nuanced.
Yes, isn't it? Yeah, light and shade, seeing the good and bad and all. Talking of light and shade, let's see if the next person can cast a little bit of light on the darkness. It's Daniel Ronsley, the voice of our balls, who says this. Not to get too personal, but this story pulled me out of a very dark hole. No, not like that. So it's one of those Doctor Who stories I will always have a special affection for because of where I was at the time. It's more of a coda to the 12th Doctor's big swan song, gently going once more round familiar houses before finally closing the door. I find there's a quiet dignity to it, even if the first Doctor is more like a first draft Doctor in this, bolstered by Mark Gatiss's just so old boy performance, and the lack of incident is strangely comforting. Ditto Mottled Fitz' endearing pet obsessions are a memory and afterlife. And seeing Capaldi's weary, wintry old Doctor finds the strength to go on in the face of such an appalling universe is exactly what I needed at the end of a very difficult year. I'm forever grateful to it for that.
Good man.
So there you go. Some positivity at last.
Yeah. I mean, we responded a lot to the last two with the prosecution like to go, no, you're a fucking idiot, it's shit. That's what...
Can't really do that when I've been that personal.
It's a bit hard to have a personal reason for liking it.
Yeah, there's lots of things that I could say, but I'm not going to because they're all very offensive.
Yeah, keep our powder dry.
Your feelings are wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, next up tonight is some bloke called Cameron Phillips. I've never heard of this guy. Let's see what he's got to say. Not seen it in a while, but it's really, really good.
All right, thanks, Cam.
He's not seen it. His opinion doesn't count.
I know. And he does strike me as the sort of guy that doesn't commit to things and stick with them, so we're just going to disregard his comment entirely.
That poll, once again, about him losing his championship belt is now open, if anyone wants it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll put the ticker up in just a moment.
I mean, even though I agree with him, it's just like, cool story, bro, you know?
I mean, that's what I've got written down for the defence. I hope you've got something.
Let's see what Dale Smith's got to offer us in viewer evidence. Dale says this: it's a shame Moffat decided to use the First Doctor as an avatar for 20th Century Who instead of writing him as Billy, but it's a fine story and a good send-off for the best Doctor.
I'd argue he wrote more as Billy than the First Doctor, but, you know, we'll get onto that.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well, like, that preempted something I was going to bring up, like, it's not right in William Hartnell, is it? It's separated. Like, if you think the First Doctor is William Hartnell and that's it, that ship has sailed. Like, the Five Doctors, it was already some bloke eating pineapple. So at least this time around,
in every scene, apparently.
In every scene, apparently, yeah.
Yep.
That ship is sailing into the distance, being waved off by S Club 7. Next person to come into port tonight, it's Oscar Groucho, who says this about Twice Upon a Time, a decalogue corridor of a short story sandwiched at the gristle end of a Christmas dinner. Some nice moments and the musings in Purgatory compelling, but this was all done far, far better in Circular Time Winter. Here's a nice reference for you.
Yeah, fair play. I hadn't heard of this, so went and looked it up after I saw this comment earlier on. I'm going to check that out because it does sound similar. And there is the fact that Paul Cornell wrote the Target novelization of this as well. It was due out, like, was getting written before the episode was on and stuff. So I wonder if there was a bit of to and fro there.
Yeah.
Fair exchange.
Okay, on the subject of whether Twice Upon a Time is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, Andrew Blair says, can't it be both? Andrew, that's not the format.
I defer to Lee to go, it's the format, because this is true of every single episode. Yes, it can be both.
Occasionally, they are 50-50.
Very occasionally. Next up, David Gillespie Pratt has been in touch to say this about Twice Upon a Time. Totally and utterly guilty, self-indulgent, drawn out, and a horribly sneering attitude to the show's past. And that's before the never-ending speech. There you go, there's David's thoughts.
He's a very intelligent man, is David.
Yep.
I mean, never-ending speech. At least this Doctor didn't go off and visit every single person he's ever met while he was regenerating, you know?
Yeah.
No, they just brought half of them back through this episode, just so they could say goodbye.
You know.
From one Dave to another, it's Dave Rennie, former guest on this series and other episodes. Dave has got this to say about Twice Upon a Time. It's a story that's just sort of there after the 12th Doctor really ended in the last story. Some lovely character stuff, and the 1914 battlefield looks astonishing, but ultimately it does look like we need to fill another hour. Guilty for me.
Yep. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is kind of fair because this episode wasn't really originally meant to happen. So, that's a point.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but it's an extra hour, so there's not a gap between July 2017 and October 2018. Gap years, those things you just claim to hate. But yeah, it's an extra hour.
Doctor pretty much been running on. We need to fill another hour since about 2014. I mean,
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Or maybe 2007.
As opposed to another 2.5 hours since 1963.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much padding have we got? That'll do. Next up is a man who never offers up padding. It's the one and only Mr. Gareth Bowley, who says, "It's beautiful. The end scene as the doctors shake hands and bid goodbye to each other moves me to tears each time. The one Christmas special that I watch every Christmas. All right, I admit it's a Moffat episode I like, maybe because it's his going. I do rather like the Mary Berry line and the First Doctor in sunglasses too."
Yeah, I mean, the Browser history, that is a joke that will never get old.
I really know if he stops doing it.
he keeps telling it, doesn't he? Again and again and again.
Yeah. I'll stop doing it when we stop laughing.
If a joke's worth doing, it's worth doing 2,048 times. I've always said that. Right, we've had some negative comments. It's time for a bit of positivity, and who better to provide that than the one and only Mr. Joe Ford, who says, "Please look at Dan, the loveliest man in Doctor Who fandom. He cannot be wrong. Also, this is a story that shouldn't exist. Nobody wanted it. Hartnell was watching from heaven, very confused why everybody's remembering the First Doctor as a dreadful old sexist. Moffat had the perfect out for both himself and Capaldi in The Doctor Falls. He couldn't even leave the show properly. This story is a summation of why his era failed for me. Unfocused, people as plot points, irritatingly smug and self-satisfied, turning real horrors into entertainment, an inability to wrap things up satisfactorily, a hideous amount of introspection for the Doctor, and really shit Daleks. Twice Upon a Time is about two old men waiting to die. I hope the kids are excited by that prospect, because that's all there is here.
Yeah,
Happy Christmas!"
Is about 5 or 6 old men waiting to die. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, people always make up imaginary kids they want to hide behind to explain why they didn't like something. The kids will vote with their remotes if they don't do this.
I mean, you need to. You're into the time Lash had the whole fear of the mythical Notwees and the casual viewer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I banged that drum. So I'll bang this drum instead of someone who's never been willfully misunderstood in their comments on a Joe Ford podcast. I wouldn't possibly say, "What's a Dark X, Joe? What a Dark X? What's Dark X? It can't be Daleks because there's only one of them. I don't understand what you mean by that tweet." There you go, mate.
But otherwise, thanks for contributing, Joe.
I liked it, to be honest with you. I agreed with it all, but the first bit, that was a bit.
Which part of that speech swung you there, Dan? I'm struggling to pinpoint which bit you liked the most.
It was good from the start, and and just got better,
Yeah, just like Twice Upon a Time.
Damn right.
Exactly like that. Just before we carry on, Pete, I don't normally do this to guests in the post box, but don't mention the competition that are on tonight. Don't mention that mob on the time Lash. They'll be deserting us in our droves now, man.
There is no competition.
Next up.
This is
it. Your words, not ours. Next up tonight, Jim Allenby, who says this succinctly about Twice Upon a Time. Best bit about Twice Upon a Time? This. And a picture of Jodie Whittaker there. There you go. I mean, I don't know. Either he's saying that the introduction of Jodie Whittaker is the best bit of many in this episode, or he's saying that only the last 2 minutes of the episode are any good. It's up for debate. We don't know.
Let's just say it was the theme of renewal, which is great all the way through the episode.
Okay, next up, our penultimate bit of your evidence tonight is from one of that mob on another YouTube channel right now. You don't want to go and check them out. Just don't bother. It's not worth
Apparently
your
they've
time.
cancelled
It's Mark
tonight.
Donaldson. What are these? Have they? All right, okay. Well,
Yeah, they've cancelled.
The
running
change in his
scared.
expression.
Those long-term friends of ours that would never say anything
Mark
bad about you
Donaldson.
here.
Fucker. Okay, my bestie mate in the whole wide world, Mark Donaldson, has been in touch to say this. A beautiful melancholic coda to the Moffat era. Christmas is probably the best time to tell a story about how, while regeneration may rejuvenate the body, it can't quite revitalise the mind. A moving story about looking backwards to move forwards, which is exactly what the end of year is about. Mark goes on to say, sorry, that was a bit morose, wasn't it? I cut out all the jokes, and what jokes? People who get uppity about how the first Doctor is written forget this that's going out on Christmas Day, and you need broad comedy caricature to puncture the fug of the Baileys in Quality Street. Not guilty. Yeah, he's redeemed himself there, hasn't he?
Defense rests. I'm just looking at the comments. Do we know about this? I'm just looking at Gareth Bawley's comment. It's like, on the timeline cancelled tonight. Is that what we've got it off? Because it might be that they're on and they've been cancelled rather than they've cancelled the broadcast. We checked on that.
Both are entirely possible. And finally, as it's nearly Christmas, let's finish viewer evidence tonight with a story to warm those with even the most wintry chill in their hearts. It's from our friend from across the pond, Mr. Joe Llewellyn, who says this. This might be long. Not guilty, of course. Capaldi is magnificent and Bradley is doing a version of the first Doctor that may not be 100% accurate, but is quite entertaining. Great job by Mark Gatiss as the captain. World War I, that line hit hard. The Christmas Eve truce 1914 has a special meaning for me. In 2012, towards the end of my deployment, our boss had the idea that at the end of our daily shift, 12 hours a day, we would present a short presentation on a historical event that day. A battle, a death, or an event. My last presentation was on December 24th, 2012, Christmas Eve. It was about the truce, of course. In my section was an officer from the German army, hello Herbert, and my replacement who I was training, hi Brian. Talking about peace and harmony in a war zone is one of my favourite memories from, wait for the tweet to catch up, there below, that deployment. On Christmas Eve, Brian still messages me with the words Joy Newell from the movie about the truce. 3 days later, I rejoined my unit, and 2 weeks later, I landed back in American soil. So this episode hits me right in the feels, as the kids say. Not guilty.
Again, we can't really argue with that, can we?
Wee bit of
I don't know. It's a lovely story, but what I'm taking from it, what I'm taking from it is the horrors of life in this. I guess this is the army. That you've got to not only might you get shot at, but you've got to do a bloody presentation at the end of each day.
Yeah, it's a presentation at the end as well.
I mean, what?
Think about the most annoying person that you work with, and somebody says, "Hey, after 12 hours of combat, that guy's going to do a presentation."
Yeah.
And there'll be slides.
Yes. I mean, do the presentation at the start.
There we go.
Something to, look forward to the war instead.
But like the PowerPoint transitions in that are great. Like they do that one where it comes in, there's like an explosion effect grenade. Yeah. All the head is spin around. Brilliant.
Mr. Paperclip being blown sky high.
Yeah.
That was great.
Okay, then that's all our viewer evidence tonight. Before we crack on with the trial itself, there's just time to remind you of 2 things. You can get in touch with us and give us your thoughts on Twice Upon a Time. Send us a comment for the live chat box on YouTube and we'll put them up on screen as they come in. And also, voting is now open. So based on the arguments put forward by Pete, Dave, Dan and Mark tonight, you get to decide whether Twice Upon a Time is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. The decision, as always, is yours. Go to @thepolisbox on Twitter or click in the link of the episode description of this video you're watching right now. It'll take you straight to the poll. Cast your vote and we'll reveal the results at the end of tonight's trial. So let's get things started. As usual, guests go first on the Polis Box. Let's have one of our first timers then. Dan, do you want to give us your first point for the prosecution of Twice Upon a Time, please?
Okay, I'll start with, I suppose, the biggest thing about this episode of Doctor Who, because this was the Christmas episode that nobody wanted to write. We're in a situation where Moffat was meant to leave at the end of the series, so this was meant to be where the Jodie Whittaker, the Chris Chibnall era kicked off. But for whatever reason, Chibbers didn't want to start his run with a Christmas special, so he bailed out of it. So you're then in this scenario where it looks like we're not going to get a Christmas episode this year. So Moffat reluctantly drags his ass off of the substitutes bench, comes in, and to kind of fill this void. And this means that basically he ends up sort of rewriting the end of the Doctor Falls, which in many respects it was the perfect ending for the 12th Doctor. He was going out with a bang, you know, two fingers up at the bad guys, but that all gets scrapped because we've now got this hour of treading water between the meant to happen regeneration and Jodie's Doctor coming in. So it's just really weird that we've got the 12th Doctor. Basically, the story of this is the 12th Doctor. He's running away from his own regeneration, and that doesn't feel like actions that this Doctor would do, because he was such a kind of up and at 'em kind of Doctor. He was really kind of quite sort of aggressive, for want of a better word, you know, and he wasn't afraid of the collateral damage. He wasn't afraid of sacrificing himself for the greater good. And at the end of the day, he spent like 1,000 lifetimes punching a hole in a crystal wall so that he could get revenge on Rassilon and the Time Lords. So it doesn't feel like the hero's end that this Doctor kind of warranted. We end up with this sort of almost cowardly act of kind of, I don't want to regenerate, I'm kind of running away from it. And you know, obviously he stops short of going, I don't want to go, like Tennant did. But yeah, you know, it just doesn't feel like we get the ending for this Doctor that we should have got, and we were gonna have, and would have been perfect at the end of the previous episode. Instead, we get an hour or so of just fannying around, running away from the regeneration, only to then go, okay, I'm going to regenerate anyhow, you know, kind of thing. So it just feels like neither Moffat or Chibnall wanted to do it. So Moffat stepped in rather than not have an episode and kind of half-asses it. And by this time, he is out of ideas. He is sort of regurgitating stuff that he's already done and done better in the past. And it just feels like it's just treading water. And yeah, so that's why it should be guilty.
Yep.
There we go. Strong start. Do you want to come back on that, guys?
Yeah. So do we respond to that, or do we have to make a point to respond to that? Sorry, do we carry on talking? So
no, you pile in.
Yeah,
respond to the point. Yeah,
cool. So the thing of him running. Go on. Sorry, my lords, just got fired from my colleague over here.
Well, I mean, you say regurgitating the past. I say playing the hits. You know, you say he's filling an hour that Chris Chibnall didn't want to do. What I say is this saved us from having a Chris Chibnall Christmas special in its place. But on the thing of the Doctor, I mean, man, the Doctor had, you know, you've watched it more recently than I have, I think, some of you. Twice upon World Enough in Time, the Doctor falls. The Doctor goes through so much in that one. I think it's entirely right that he would be going, actually, you know what? I've had enough. You know, he lost Nardole, he lost Bill, he lost essentially the hope that he had that Missy had finally changed. And he got absolutely, I mean, we still don't really know how he actually got killed, but he was battered by those Cybermen. Yeah, I don't think it's out of character for him to be acting the way he does in this. And I think, if anything, this episode is a much needed kind of breather before the regeneration. Mark.
Yeah, so it was gonna, like, on the thing of that, on the dodging the regeneration, it's not the way that Tennant is dodging the regeneration, is it? It's saying he doesn't want to regenerate, he wants to die. That's sort of the new ending they're sticking. I'm not sure how the Dr. Falls was meant to look before we got to this plan, but I wouldn't say that, having a Stephen Moffat Christmas special saves us from a Chris Chibnall Christmas special, because it saves us from there being nothing there. It's not that if he hadn't done it, Chris Chibnall would have started Christmas or New Year because he didn't want to. And we're left with this thing of, like, as I say, he's running away from regenerating because he's like holding off regeneration because he enters, this crisis that he's in where he ends up meeting his past self, which I'm sure we'll come to later on in the show. But like Moffat said at the time of just going out, the promotion of this, that it's both coda and drum roll. Like, we've had the climactic story, and this is the epilogue. It's the last minute commission. It's not I agree that, yes, it's marking time, and there's things about that I don't think are accidental. The fact that it's a story about time being frozen, the story being in stasis while this thing is resolved. This isn't like a Christmas dinner with all the Trayman's like regeneration episode. It's a tray bake. It's comfort food made from whatever's left in the fridge, even though whatever's left in the fridge is dead, as you'd want it to be if you're putting it in a tray bake.
We're defending this, don't you?
These are all strengths, mate. Comfort food is good. Comfort food Doctor Who is good. Like, you know what? It can be one of two things. It can be the too introspective, too dark IP play Doctor Who that people claim not to like, or it could be the comfort food thing that this is. I agree with the comment that we had about it being like a really Christmassy one. For starters, it is one you can rewatch at Christmas, even though it's about death. It's about the afterlife, that everyone in it is dead. And that's a good thing. Sorry, there you go. The defense rests. That's a good thing. I was saying it positively.
But I would come back.
Just waiting for the kick at the end.
So hang on, sorry. So the argument that it's bad that it's an hour of Doctor Who instead of not an hour of Doctor Who, and that's its crime.
But is bad Doctor Who better than no Doctor Who though?
Well, that's for the Chris Chibnall era to figure out.
Yes.
So that's for like later on.
Yes.
That was a lot of the positive reviews of Flux. But we're left with this thing that is, in a holding pattern, but that's designed into the story, and there are many things in it that are held up as criticisms that aren't their themes, they're jokes. And it's not a thing of, it's definitely not the big, slice of, Christmas special Doctor Who pie that you get. It's not Voyage of the Damned. It's not it's not even Return of Dr. Mysterio, which, I'm hoping I can argue this to a 50-50 result if it comes to it, but here we are. But yeah, it is a thing that's made out of economy. As you say, it's this last-minute commission that is, bringing back everyone. It's bringing in Mark Gatiss, the actor, not the writer. It's bringing in Toby Whithouse, the actor, not the writer. I don't know how many times we've ever seen him act and not write, but he's around, so he's in it. Pearl Mackie's around, so she's in it. And it is just this play about reflection and renewal at the end of that time. And I know that it's about running away from regeneration, and Jodie's not in it yet, but that's because they're not going to step on what Chris Chibnall wants to do and start it as a special at Christmas.
You say they did this what they had available at the time, but this is not what they had available at the time. Moffat asked Pearl Mackie to come back for this. She thought she was out. He wrote the part specifically for Gareth because he wanted to work with him on his last episode. This isn't what they had lying around. This is what they decided to make. They put bananas in the tray bake just because they wanted bananas in it. And it doesn't work.
And there's no bananas in this special arsehole, mates. They go to Villain Guard, there's no bananas. It's all been bombed by a Dalek. A Dalek they would have in the cupboards, which is what I mean by things they had lying around. I want to say they have Pearl Mackie lying around. Yes, she's contracted to come back. Everyone in this is contracted to come back and do it, but it's where you left off. It's having to put an ellipsis at the end of that series because there's not going to be anything on otherwise for like 18 months or whatever it is. And I think it's a last minute commission. I don't think it's anything ideal like, how they would have ended it. I think how it ends all the same, and that it carries on in the themes of that era, that it reflects on it, and that it mirrors where it started. That you have a Dalek in a cupboard, you might as well have a Dalek that was at the beginning of it. You have this bit of the first in Deep Breath where he looks at his reflection, and wonders if there's any part of him that's still the same as the one who left Gallifrey all those years ago. And in the last episode, meets the one who left Gallifrey all those years ago until, later developments. But, it's that. It comes out of an old idea that was at the time that he said it when Day of the Doctor came out. The ideal thing to do would be to have William Hartnell meet Matt Smith and be appalled at what he's become. And that makes it into this in a way. But this is the evolution of that idea of the first Doctor, seeing a Doctor who's been through the Time War, been through everything, the Doctor of War, and having to reconcile that with It's a Wonderful Life. Again, because he's done that a few times now. But It's a Wonderful Life. This winds up being what he does in Day of the Doctor as well. He shows Time War Doctor what will happen if you do this, what your life would be like if you do this. So it's a repetition of a theme, yeah. And yeah, it's definitely repetition. Am I just digging here? Am I just digging a hole? I think this is sort of positive. Is this a little bit like when people, review Wes Anderson films, go, Wes Anderson's done it again, and depending on the way you say it, it's a positive or a negative review.
I mean, you seem to be assuming we're going to be different, and trying to claw back from that path. I see no reason for us to be. I mean, but they chose to bring Pearl Mackie back, and what a decision that was.
And why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Isn't it brilliant to see the Doctor and Bill reunited after she died in The Doctor Falls? Isn't that great, lovely choice?
Yes, but that would have been lovely for Big Finish and the spin-offs they do.
No, it wouldn't. Come on. No, that's not the
same.
It won't.
No, it wouldn't, because we would have had to have Jacob Dudman do it in his Scottish accent, even worse than mine.
But
I'm Doctor Who.
They didn't have to bring her back.
The Billy Connolly Doctor.
Yeah.
Get out of my swamp. Sorry, carry on.
Good old Shrekky Connolly.
It's Dudman's fucking impression, not mine. It's my impression of Dudman, not fucking Capaldi. Sorry, continue.
That's okay. Seeing as we've descended into impressions, have we run our course with that point? If we get to the point where we're kicking Jacob Dudman, I think we've probably exhausted it, haven't we? Anything more to add to Dan's point that we brought up? No? All good?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Just before we move on, that was 5 minutes where pie, bananas and tray bakes were mentioned. Have you lot had your dinner tonight? I'm worried you're all hungry. Shall I phone something in for you? Okay, before we move on to the next point, we've had some comments coming in on YouTube. Fraser Gregory says, it'll come up, there we go. Christ, I thought Cam had fallen victim to the Polis Box curse. Still time. His series title can be wrested away from him. Joe Llewellyn says, thank you for indulging me. I worked in an office for the last 6 months. I went out occasionally, but I was only shot at once. Gareth Bowley has been in touch to say, is bad Doctor Who? Gareth Bowley says, is bad Doctor Who better than no Doctor Who? Hello, TV movie.
Yeah, but the TV movie reinvigorated all the spin-off media for the next 7 or 8 years. It's
true. So there you go. You can retract your comment, Gareth, if you want to. Right then, let's move on to the first point for the defence. And Pete, what have you got? What's your first point of the defence for Twice Upon a Time?
Okay, my first point for the defence. It's already been touched upon by one of the viewers, Mark Gatiss. I say Gatiss, I think that's correct. I'm hearing a lot of Gattis. There's only one T there. That's all I'm saying. Mark Gatiss as the captain. It's such a wonderful little part. It's Moffat writing for his mate, but when his mate is Mark Gatiss, and it's the kind of part that he plays so well. I never really bought in this, things like Professor Lazarus, but this, he absolutely plays that kind of bewildered, stiff upper lip character. And the tragedy of the guy, this is a guy who's been yanked out, much like Clara was, I suppose, from the point before his death. And he knows it. And I've got a cat. This is going to make all my points better. And he plays it with such a kind of understated sort of dignity throughout the whole thing. And the moment where the doctors are doctoring, and he's there going, "Hang on, World War One." The human horror of that. Charlie, get off the computer. It's the human horror of that, because it's the kind of thing you don't think about a lot of the
time. I feel your point about human horror has been undercut by a cat's arse on screen.
Please, Charlie. You're undermining my point horrendously.
His tail.
Come on, Charlie. He is resolute in not moving.
No. You're saying the human tragedy.
Yeah. And yes, he's dropping in lines about chroma and but by the time you learn he's a Lethbridge Stewart, it gets me. It got me. It's like, oh yeah, because this is a character in a dynasty that we love. Well, yes, there we go. Yeah, but the thing that I love most about Gatiss' character, the thing that absolutely seals it for me, is, and yes, it's twat, as all the cool kids are calling this episode, twat, and that is another reason why this episode is brilliant. The thing that absolutely seals Mark Gatiss' character for me is just how angry it made Andy Frankham-Allen from Candy Jar Books. And Andy Frankham-Allen, who writes and publishes the Lethbridge Stewart audio series, and because this episode basically suggests that Archibald is the Brigadier's grandfather.
Yep.
And of course, in the Lethbridge Stewart novels, which, apologies to if anyone here has written them, I'm sure they're wonderful. I don't think they should exist, but I'm sure they're wonderful. I think they're parasiting off the Doctor Who IP in a horrific way. But yeah, that's the way comics are to you guys as well. But they'd already done stuff with the Brigadier's grandfather, and as far as they were concerned, Archibald was his great uncle. And of course, when you've got the TV series saying it, you've kind of, nobody had warned them, apparently. He made a thing of it was the Hazeman estate. That I don't think the Hazeman estate was. Is it Hannah Hazeman or something? I don't think she was. She wouldn't have been watching, frankly. So Andy Frankham-Allen was sat there annoyed, and it meant that he had to write a really shitty short story in a haste over the next few days, basically. Sort of, actually, he could secretly be the Brig's father, but as far grandfather. But as far as the Brig knew, it was his great uncle. But yeah, we'll allow that. Okay, he might. And then he's like, "Oh, all the issues have been resolved." Although apparently he was also threatening legal action, depending on where you read. His tweets have long been deleted. So yeah, I love the character and the portrayal anyway, but the fact that it put Candy Jar in that position, just the icing on the cake.
Cherry on the top.
I'm just 2 seconds. I'm just checking the dog's definitely not coming in while I answer that. Just to add on that though, like the thing of the Mark Gatiss doing it is ultimately just writing for his mate, sure, and it's another one of these ways in which, like, the Brig Easter egg is in there and stuff, but it's also just that an adventure in space of time kind of been the cradle of this story. You've got David Bradley in it, you've got the writer of that story turning up in it as well, and it's a nice connection back. But as we were saying around the time the cat winked at the camera, the human tragedy in the World War One of it all gives it, like, not only an audience viewpoint figure, but like stakes as well. And I like that about it on the most recent viewing, because he's not one of my, like, he's not, I think, the best character, but I did really enjoy his performance this time around.
Yeah, but as you both said, it's him writing for his mate. And if you read the script of this without knowing who was cast, and I was like, stiff upper lip, English officer, kind of sad, melancholy. He's got a nice moustache though. And then you look at the cast and goes, oh, Gaius is in it. All right, so that's who he'll be playing then. Because it's just, of course it's him. Because who else would it be?
The fact he wrote for him means that it's such a good casting, and writing to the actor who you know is going to be playing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also quite lazy. I'd like to think that if I was friends with a showrunner who was writing a part with me in mind, he'd challenge me. He'd want me to do something. He'd ask me what I wanted from it, and I could do something different. Not a rerun of every other character you've played for the last 10 years since you left League of Gentlemen, and even some of the characters in League of Gentlemen are the same fucking character as this.
Alternatively, it's Christmas Day. You want to be giving the thing that they do absolutely best, and that is Gator City's absolute acting best.
But he's barely acting. Being a
Exactly.
kind of closeted, middle-aged, middle-class English man. That's him. He's not acting at all.
Makes it realistic.
Who would you cast as the captain, Dave?
I don't know, but the point is he wrote it with this actor in mind.
Okay.
So he didn't write the character and then find an actor that would fit the character. He wrote the character thinking, I want this man in this episode. How can I write the episode so that my mate fits into it?
Thinking, I know how he'll play this, and he'll play it beautifully because I know his strengths. I know that he can absolutely knock this out of the park and make people cry on Christmas Day.
Yeah, but he doesn't. It's Mark Gatiss. It's what he does in everything. It's a Gatiss character. It's not different. It's not new. It's not anything. It's just Gatiss will do a part in it. All right, this will do 10 minutes of a character.
So the range of Mark Gatiss characters, are you saying that even within Doctor Who, that this is the same as Professor Lazarus, that this is the same as Gav Rock, whatever he's called, the death chess player in the Wedding River song? And going a bit more broad, are you saying that the captain is the same as Hilary Briss from the League of Gentlemen? That this is the same thing?
To an extent, yes.
It's the same as the
is it
the Spitfire pilot in Victory of the Daleks, Danny Boy.
The voice
the same. Yeah, exactly.
It was a different war, Dan. It's a whole different war. That's very disrespectful. Dan, where is your poppy? I've just noticed you're not wearing a poppy, Dan.
But yeah, in Lazarus Experiment, he plays a middle-class English man with experience of war who's sad and wants to go back to when it was better. It's the same character. He's literally the same.
Apart from the fact that he was a
chess guy, then the big alien guy who plays chess in Wedding River Song.
All right, occasionally he plays slightly different characters, this is a Gatiss character.
Who you just
played by Mark Gatiss, yes.
Mark Gatiss always strikes me as
we're going to jump in there, but
the Dennis Waterman of Doctor Who. You know, he writes it. He wants to be in it. He wants to write the theme tune. He wants to sing the theme tune. And I think that's the thing. It's sort of like, should he have got the role purely because his mate wanted to write for it, or because he was the best actor for that role? I don't
he was
think
the best actor for that role.
I don't think so. There are a million actors that are better than Mark Gatiss.
I think the role was literally written for him, so he was clearly going to be the best actor to play it.
But it does the story of the service.
Is very much on the side of the defence here. There you go. That's what Daniel's got to say. Yeah, I think the character works on his own. The reveal's just a nice little bonus.
Yep.
Sorry, F, on you go. You were about to...
No, the character does work on his own, but it's not anything new or different or a push for anything. It's generic and filler. It is tray bake. It's meh. It's leftovers mixed together.
Hello. We're not appropriating tray bake from the defence, thank you. Tray bakes are fucking delicious. All right, when you make them right.
Shouldn't have given them tray bake. Come on.
I'm objecting. Objection.
You take Tray Bake's name out of your fucking mouth.
All right, he's like the turkey curry that you have for like a week after Christmas because you got to use all your turkey.
Objection.
I look forward to that turkey curry every year.
You've got to have it, but you don't want it, you know.
Highlight of the Christmas season for me.
It's the turkey sandwich later on Christmas night because you don't want it, you don't need it, but it's there and it'll do, and it's really fucking bland.
Lovely.
You can see then that it will do. Yeah, he was there, that it will do, and that's.
I mean, look, I'm sorry that your Christmas sandwiches are bland, Dave. Maybe you need some tips.
Yeah.
I'll happily chat to you after the show, but
people telling on themselves with their cookery skills here and their tray bakes and their sandwich making skills.
We can give you Greg Wallace's phone number. He's not got anything else going on just now, so he can just guide you through it. It's fine.
Oh dear.
Okay, before I get even more hungry, shall we go to the next point for the prosecution? Now we're on to turkey as well as tray bakes. Let's do it then. Dave, you're next up, so let's have your first point for the prosecution of Twice Upon a Time, please.
It's something that was raised in a lot of the viewer evidence, and it's quite an obvious point here, but I'll make it anyway. It's the complete character assassination of the First Doctor. Now, I know that Moffat said it was kind of written to show the views of time when the First Doctor was existing, but that is not the First Doctor as we know him. You're sitting down for Christmas with your family. It's the Doctor Who Christmas special. Most of your friends and family haven't seen the original series because, you know, they're not weirdos like us. So this is the first time they will meet the First Doctor properly. And what they get introduced to is a caricature, carry-on, Alf Garnett, racist, sexist tube who is not the First Doctor as we know him. They've completely rewritten this character and not to do him anything good. There's a quote I'll give you. There was a controversial aspect, even in pre-publicity, but this is the quote. Somebody found it hard to find any examples of sexism as egregious as the ones shown here. And that is a quote from Mr. Pete Dillon-Trenchard when he wrote for Den of Geek. That there was no examples in actual First Doctor that were as sexist as in this episode. This story
said that.
ruins...
Very poor quality journalism, Den of Geek.
This is the story that changed the First Doctor into a character they wasn't. And I saw that when I was doing research. I thought, I'm just going to use that. It'll be funny. So this is a story that's going to be watched by you and your family the first time they meet the First Doctor. And they have completely changed his character to make him something he wasn't. Now, yeah, when the First Doctor was made, the attitudes of society were different. But the First Doctor wanted to take his granddaughter out, show her the universe, show her the world, show her different things, and educate her that things could be better. He didn't take his granddaughter out so she could dust the fucking set. And I think that's the biggest crime of this episode against Doctor Who, is that it changes the First Doctor, who we need to remember is the one that started all this. And yes, you can say he was the one you watched while you were waiting for the second or the third or the fourth, whichever Doctor you like to turn up. But he's the original. He's the one that started it. He's the one that this is based on. Every other Doctor comes from him. And to turn him into this is a massive crime.
I would like stricken from the record this notion of, well, I mean, first of all, the excerpt from Den of Geek I don't think is applicable, but also this notion of this idea of people encountering oh no, they're encountering the First Doctor for the first time and they're going to be so turned off. Yeah, I'd like it stricken from the record because not a single one of those people was ever going to go back and check out the fucking web planet. You know,
exactly.
So we can ignore that. But they weren't going to watch anyway.
No,
so,
but
but
they're going to view the First Doctor as this character forever.
And
they're never going to update it.
Exactly.
That they're going to view the First Doctor as the
change
sexist.
Your life?
Because it's very hard to show your family and friends things that you like and you're proud of when it's this lazy and
but you
defensive.
were never going to show them the rescue. You were never going to show them the Aztecs.
That is, though, I think the nub of the problems people have with the Doctor Who Christmas special is that you watch it with family. This is a time where if your family is not as into Doctor Who as you are, that, it's sort of like, it can be a little bit embarrassing. The sensitivities and the cringe are higher up. And I get that. I get that that's a pain point. However, it doesn't reflect on the episode itself, the artifact. May I finish? The artifact. Just said, I'm arguing with my own side now. I'll argue with anyone, mate. Anyway, as an artifact, it doesn't affect the thing. It's something that, was said in the listener comments is very rewatchable at Christmas and all the rest of it. And by the way, the defense would like to withdraw our request to strike Pete's comments from the record. And I would like to enter this into evidence from Devon Dan 03. Dan Pinn on February the 14th, 2023. I liked Trace Upon a Time. It gets a bad rep because of the way it portrays the First Doctor, but it's a really good, enjoyable story. And it's great to have another adventure with Peter Capaldi and Bell.
But it was me that made that point, not Dan. Dan can feel differently about certain things, but my point still stands.
Well, it's me that's making this point, not Pete. The point is this. The point is this: that the First Doctor in this is not the First Doctor. The returning Doctors in any multi-Doctor story are not the same, even when they are played by the same actor. I'm not talking about the Richard Hurndall thing. Like, Troughton is less and less the same as the second Doctor of every reappearance because he's playing a foil to whoever the lead is. This is the multi-Doctor story that is maybe the only one that's about, in more like a two-hander sort of way, about the returning Doctor. Like, David Tennant in Dave the Doctor is less the 10th Doctor in that than his 14th version. His 14th Doctor is, and it's supposed to be a different character. In Dave the Doctor, that's Moffat again writing him, and is the sort of comic relief Doctor. And that sort of provides a mold for this, but it's a fact of multi-Doctor stories that when you bring someone back years later to play the character, it will be different. It's every time you bring someone to play a character later, it's going to be like, whether it's Billy Piper a couple of years later or Bonnie Langford in the current series, it's going to evolve and change, and that is baked into this story. Like, it's not just the line at the beginning where it's like, oh, you're about to regenerate, your face is all over the place, and that you could use that as a hand wave for the personality things as well, but that all the way through the story is that the thing that when Bill is there, he said it's not Bill, it's a memory of Bill, because memory is not the same. And again, that's not repetition, that's theme. That's a concern that's in Moffat's scripts again and again. Not because, he's run out of ideas, because it's an idea he's interested in. This is a different permutation of this idea, like stretched out to a full... The moment later on in the episode where they're like, it's not an evil plan, it's just a university project gone wrong, that we're not like, the First Doctor is here because only the two of us can defeat this random thing we've just made up for this episode. It's Soul Harvester or some hacky shit like that. It's not Deadpool and Wolverine. It's not like it is similarly traipsing over a previous beloved character that it's bringing back. But Doctor Who is not an advert for other Doctor Who. Like, it's not going to... Granted, it might not convince people to go back and watch the first Doctor ones. And if it does, they'll be pleasantly surprised. They'll find maybe more nuance and maybe more flubbed lines than in this version. But it's, the separation, I think, of William Hartnell's performance and the First Doctor as a character, who can be played by other actors, is important. I think that's something that figures in this era of Doctor Who in particular. You don't have like meeting Winston Churchill, and you don't have him meeting Richard Nixon. Like the characters Peter Capaldi meets are Robin Hood and Santa Claus, and the year before this, Superman, like an off-brand Superman, because it's again an idea that Moffat's interested in. The Doctor is this figure who is played by other people and is down the years becomes this folkloric figure.
There is also one key point we're missing about the first. Yes, we can all agree the First Doctor here is not like the First Doctor as seen by that's just a fact. But there's one key point we're missing, and that's the fact that it's really funny.
Yeah, but that's the point, though, isn't it? He's basically created this version of the First Doctor, which has kind of lost a lot of the nice bits of his personality. When he's like chuckling because he's outwitted an enemy, or he's about to, do something clever. That playful side of him's gone. Just because Stephen Moffat wanted to land a couple of funny jokes about sexism and how much we've advanced
and
on
it's
from
a throwaway Christmas Day episode.
Yeah, but why would you tarnish the legacy of the like Dave said, the guy that
there's still enough lovely First Doctor stuff in there. I think, and it really covers the whole sort of his reluctance to regenerate. That was there in a couple of lines that were cut, maybe even. I think the line about no, I won't, I refuse. But it's still the David Bradley still gets some really lovely stuff to do, sort of exposing his vulnerabilities, the First Doctor's vulnerabilities. So there's a lot of really lovely stuff in there for him. But yes, he makes some funny jokes at the character's expense. But then when they bring Peter Capaldi back, played by some, like, I don't know, Justin Bieber in like 40 years' time, they bring back
in audio form.
Really mourned. In audio form, yeah, exactly.
In audio form now. It doesn't tarnish Capaldi's legacy that Jacob Duffman is out there doing.
Exactly,
doing audios. The other thing I was going to mention as well.
A little bit there, apart from the bits that aren't.
Yeah, because there's that bit. You just get that one great speech when he's talking to the Bell testimony kind of outside while Capaldi's going in to see Rusty. And the First Doctor's there, and he starts talking about, his researches. And that's all stuff that when you go back and listen to season 3, because most of it's missing, stuff like the massacre, like where he's kind of on his own, has that monologue after Stephen storms out about why he travels and what he's doing. And then like the Savages is a story that's kind of like where you meet a civilization he met before he meets Ian and Barbara. So it's the idea of his researches, and then that little monologue that Moffat gives Bradley about wanting to understand why good is the good isn't logical, so why should good win? Like, I thought that was, again, that's in there as a grace note. And yeah, you get like silly bits that are all rooted in stuff that are actually, if you go back selectively enough, there are definitely jokes about, I'll give you a jolly good smacks bottom thing is a verbatim quote from one of them, isn't it? It's just that it's in a different context and it's here done as a joke. And you said much worse things as well.
But the thing is,
in the comments,
the First Doctor only says that once. It doesn't make it a character trait that basically Moffat could hang the personality of this version of the Doctor off of.
No,
just as
Sorry, I'll let Gareth do his comment. Go on.
I was going to say, Gareth Foley kind of makes a similar point to what you guys are saying just now. He's mentioned that the First Doctor and the 5 Doctors insist Tegan makes the tea. So this isn't the first example of Hartnell's character being twisted in certain ways.
Go with his pineapple.
just a quick comment. By the way, why are you actually listening to season 3 of Doctor Who when it's all been found by Ian Levine?
It has. Breaking news, guys.
His AI episode regenerations are apparently as good as finding the lost episode, so he considers them found.
Yeah.
So get on board, Mark.
Yeah, I will. But not to bang on though. I think the last thing that I think makes it all right is that, as much as it's like it's a jolly good smack bottom and make tea, dust the TARDIS, etc., is Capaldi as a foil to that is mortified by it. And it's to the point that throughout the episode, it's almost like he's playing it up because it's embarrassing Capaldi. It's from the early bits in the TARDIS where he's saying,
joke comes.
Yeah, he has that line about the nurse, doesn't he? Like, it's surprising because he's a man, where he's going, will you please, oh my God, shut up, stop talking. And then he just keeps going from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further to add about the depiction of Hartnell in this episode, or are we done with that?
I think we've successfully pushed it.
Okay. All right then. Right then, before we go to our break, let's go to the next point for the defence. So that's Mark this time. Let's have your first point for the defence of Twice Upon a Time, please, Mark.
I've actually blown through all my notes. No, I'm good. I got more things. Okay,
he's done Richie.
Number one. No, we're good.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe maybe saying it's a tray bake wasn't the compliment that I thought it was. What I'm saying is it's Christmas comfort food. It is something that's thrown in there, like at the last minute, because as I say, it's not an ideal commission, a late commission, and all the rest of it. You can tell I'm just repeating notes now. My point that I want to make for the defence is that this is an extra hour with Peter Capaldi in that role, is that you can have what we've had, with previous Doctors in the new series going, which is a battle royale or lots of wailing and gnashing of teeth and old man makeup and, lots of explosive type stuff. You still, by deferring this for an hour, by having a story that, is about time and stasis, which is never going to be like, you wouldn't normally think it'd be like very dramatically rewarding. You do end up with what we've had as like sort of it's a very untraditional regeneration story in that it's a pause, it's an epilogue, and yet it's also the last traditional regeneration story we've had to do. Like the two stories that follow this aren't really that. Like there's one's got the pressure of being an anniversary special, weirdly, for the BBC. It's that mad thing, isn't it, where like the power of the Doctor and the Giggle have plots that should be the other way around. The thing about the origins of TV and there being a monster should maybe like the BBC Centennial thing, and then the Doctor Palooza is more what people expect from the 60s. You know, we've had these stories come out since, and Twice Upon a Time is doing this thing about regeneration that is about renewal. That by freezing that moment in between the bit where all the explosions happen, and then he stands in the TARDIS, says, "I don't want to go," and burns everything to the ground for the next showrunner to come in. By extending that, you have something to reflect on the era and the themes and the character. You get like a proper goodbye. I think that's worth celebrating, especially when you're doing one that's like a Christmas special. It's the gag they keep making is that Moffat twice went, "It's Christmas Day and your hero dies," and it's a story that, you know, we have whatever the ending of the Doctor Falls is supposed to be. I've never found anywhere, like there's no script that I've seen that goes from, you know, Bill revives him and he jumps up going, "Sontaran's perverting the course of human history," to whoosh sort of thing. But like by the time you get to the end of this hour, and you know, you've got that reflection of all the companions and stuff like that, and you've got the last moment with Jenna Coleman, with Pearl Mackie, with Matt Lucas. You've got all that in there, and then goes into the TARDIS, and there's that line, "Another lifetime won't kill anyone except for me," which is like would be an amazing last word. And then you get into the monologue, which a lot of people have slagged off, and which we know from behind the scenes stuff, like Moffat and Capaldi worked on together. Capaldi is a writer and an Oscar-winning director, and that was the sort of sentiment he wanted to put in as his hands up. And that last scene is what I think is like a microcosm of the entire special, really, is that, like, you know, another lifetime won't kill anyone except me, I guess, is the perfunctory thing you would get at the end of a giant, important, climactic finale like the Doctor Falls. And everything after is just gravy. You can have gravy on a tray bed, guys. I'm going to stop a culinary metaphors any second now. But, you know, it still loops back around and ends on that "Doctor, I let you go" sentiment, which I think it sums it all up. And I think, again, it's just having the extra time to elaborate. You can think of it as unnecessary as filler. There's no such thing as a filler Doctor Who episode. This is granted something that went on in, you know, the usual slot, but Doctor Who's an anthology show. There's no such thing as a filler episode.
I think you could argue there's quite a lot of Doctor Who filler episodes. Really quite a lot. But I think that your point, to an extent, is fair. That a lot of this is gravy. But you ate yesterday. We've had the end of this Doctor. We saw the end of him. We saw his death. We saw him sacrificing. And now we've got, oh wait, he's back. And now he's going to do another big speech about how he's sacrificing. It's like, I don't fucking care anymore. We've seen him
have somewhere to be.
No, because it's Christmas.
A really good actor.
Yes,
it's a really good actor doing the speech, man.
Yes, it's Peter Capaldi doing a speech. We haven't seen one of those since the last episode, or in fact earlier in this one, because at this point, that's what he does half the time, is a big speech. And it's
the
fine.
Doctor, though. That's the format of the show. Instead of shooting people, he talks.
As well as shooting people, he talks. But it becomes...
It's a good point.
It's kind of like Doctor Who bingo this episode. Because you can just tick the boxes. It's like, oh, Gatiss is in it. Tick a box. Oh, there's a joke about something inappropriate. Tick. Oh, there's a joke about the sonic sunglasses. Tick. Oh, Capaldi's making a speech. Tick. And that's what this is. To quote
like
back
I said
to
earlier, you say bingo sheet, I say greatest hits.
But
yeah,
yes.
It's a victory lap, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's music bingo rather than bingo with numbers.
Yeah, it's a victory lap. And there's nothing worse than seeing somebody do a victory lap when you're ready to go home and you're ready for the next event to start.
Spoken like a true Hearts fan.
Don't mention that game, all right?
But in hindsight, I mean, the next event was season 11. You know,
which Defence Withdraws. I prefer season 11 to a lot of. I prefer season 11 to a lot of what followed. So the Defence Withdraws that remark. What I was going to say is, though, Dave, is that the thing is sort of like very tied to when you first watched it. So, did you rewatch it for this, or are you still very tied to how you felt when you first watched it? Are your feelings about this kind of tied to that?
The way I prep for these is I rewatch it multiple times in the week running up to it.
Yeah,
so
sorry, I'm not suggesting that you weren't doing your due diligence.
No, I know, but
yeah.
This is helpful for being on the prosecution because we've been in this season for the last 6 fucking months. So I've watched a lot of Capaldi's Doctor in the last few months.
Yeah.
And for doing this, the way I prep for it is I watch it just as a watch along. I just watch it once, then I watch it again and make notes, and then I let it percolate for a few days, and then I watch it again to update the notes, see things that I might have missed. So for me, I have seen Capaldi's episodes so many times lately, and this one in particular 3 times in the last week.
Yeah.
So to prosecute, it makes it much easier, and my headspace is not where I was when I first saw this. My headspace is watching this for the 3rd time in a week to make notes.
So you're kind of admitting here that this is a you problem.
No, not at all. I'm admitting that all of my points are well thought out and with depth behind them.
Definitely.
With a context that was never intended.
What I was going to say is with the context of now having seen what came next, and not to say that it's better or worse, do you still feel that it's just an disappointment sort of filler space? So I mean, now that it's not in the Christmas TV schedule, now it's not filling a gap between July and October as it did when it was broadcast. How do you still feel the same way about it being filler? If you were watching this not for this, if you were going on a watch through and rolling into Jodie Whittaker, would you still feel, well, I can skip that?
See, I think I feel this filler because I watched the last story 2 weeks ago, and it was Capaldi's last story, and it was the end of him as the Doctor, and he was written out really well. It was great for Bill, it was great for him, it was great for Nardole. It was a big full stop at the end of that, and now we've got this, which is not good enough to bring them all back for.
To miss them.
Yes, and this is like 5 months to miss your ex that was mental, and then comes back for one day and you go, all right, yep, that wasn't worth it. Because
wow.
It comes back and go, yeah, Doctor Who, and it's Capaldi, and it's Moffat, and it's Gatiss, and you go, oh, all right, was that it then? Ah, fair enough. And it's underwhelming for what it's meant to be. And I know that's because it was short notice, and they had to write it as they went, and all that kind of excuses that people throw forward for this. But as anything that people say that saves this are just excuses. It was short notice and all that kind of thing. But you've got Rachel Talalay directing, you've got Murray Gold on fucking drums, you've got Capaldi on lead guitar, you've got David Bradley on backup, you've got Mark Gatiss playing the tambourine in the corner, and it's the reunion tour, and it turns out they're like just not that good. As somebody mentioned, they've got Toby Whithouse acting in it, a man who's written multiple Doctor Who and Torchwood stories, and he's just playing a German soldier waving a gun. They had so much potential for this, and you can argue that it was short notice, but they never used that potential. It's a tray bake, and they've got all these really good ingredients and put it in a tray bake, and you eat the tray bake and go, yeah, that was food, but could have done better.
Well, yeah, Jesus Christ, the defense is not claiming it's the best episode of Doctor Who ever, but I thought we all, kind of like Doctor Who. And I'm not saying that it's bad Doctor Who is better than no Doctor Who. If you want to say that this is bad, it is the greatest hits too, as I say, but it's something that I think still has more going on. I hope the point I've made is that aside from it's an extra hour, it has other concerns in it. Yes, these are themes that have gone from before, but it does also expand upon and find more time for things that from the 12th Doctor's era that wouldn't have been able to fit into the end of the Doctor Falls. Or it might have done, we'll never know, because they basically said, well, we're not doing a Christmas special after it had wrapped, so they had to go back in and reopen this.
At the risk of usurping Lee, I think Gareth has nailed it in the chat. Dr. Fall's boring, Twice Upon a Time fun. Doesn't even fall.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't even fall.
Yeah,
it's
got a point. True.
Yeah, it doesn't even fall until the end of Twice Upon a Time when she falls and survives somehow. I still forget how.
But Yeah, you say this is the greatest hits. I would actually say this isn't the greatest hits. This is when they've signed a 4-album deal and they've been touring and they want to go home, and the record company says, right, we need a 4th album, and they go, fuck it, just fill it with B-sides, because that's what this is. They're not shit, but it's not the greatest hits. It's the same songs you've heard them play before, but it's the album tracks, it's the B-sides. And they've just phoned it in because they need to for contractual reasons.
What do you have against album tracks?
It's
and
almost like an album
Trey Bakes and all
hastily
of
coupled
these
together in
things
time for Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing is, as Doctor Who fans, I think the album tracks is also where we live. You know, it's not people can name offhand Voyage of the Damned and blink if they're one of the 100 people asked on an episode of Pointless to name an episode of Doctor Who. Like this, I'm defending this as comfort food. It has the extra, it has the gravy, it has the. I'm going to stop making culinary metaphors. It's so hacky. How did I get trapped into this? It's. We'll go with the Wes Anderson thing. Wes Anderson fans go watch a Wes Anderson film. They want to see the things Wes Anderson does. I want to see the things Doctor Who does, and I think this does them well. That's the point at which we disagree. I think it would be a stretch to call it guilty of crimes against Doctor Who when it's time that it was never meant to have, but it fills it, and that's not enough. Whether it's filler, it's more than enough to occupy the space. So what I'm saying, which sounds like I'm saying it's filler. It's not. It's.
I really wish I'd chosen
food.
Shut
up, Pete. I'm going to go to Gareth's comments again. It has the stuffing, the gravy, and the cranberry sauce. Thanks, Gareth. We're in Christmas food territory now.
Yeah. Okay, before this descends into a full-blown episode of Food and Drink, how about we go for a quick break before resuming the second half of the trial? Sound good?
I'm starving.
Yeah.
I've got tray bake in the oven.
Before we do that, a couple of quick bits of business, a couple of comments that come in. Daniel Ronsley says, how does that change your life? I think that's the ultimate defence from Mr. PDT there. Thank you. And Gareth Bowie asks, as this is a Christmas episode and the TARDIS is pulled into the air, but we'll get a rendition of Walking in the Air from the Polis Box tonight. No, what's that?
We're walking in the air.
Mark Donald. Mark Donald's is not doing anything, so we can bring him, and he's Mr. Show Tunes for the Polis Box. So we'll have a word. We might make that happen for the end of the time there, Gareth.
I think you'll find
before we go for
Cameron Phillips also isn't doing anything because he's back home and watching us on YouTube, I believe.
Exactly, and
which means that you can tell him.
Coming up in a second.
Yeah. You can tell him about that poll that you're running on
Before
Twitter.
we do that, yeah, well, talking of polls, both polls are running at the moment. You can cast your vote on whether Twice Upon a Time is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. Go to the post box on Twitter or click the link in this episode description, this video you're watching. It'll take you to the poll. Results will be revealed at the end of tonight's show. Another result that will be revealed before the end of tonight's show is whether Cameron should be stripped of his series champion title for dereliction of duty. Cast your vote in the same way. Go to Twitter at the post box or click on the link in the episode description, and we will decide whether the last 6 months have been an absolute waste for him. Vote guilty. Right, let's have a quick break. We will be back in a few minutes to resume the trial and reveal all the results. And Cameron, but not in person, will be revealing what we'll be doing in Series 5 of the Polis Box Live as well. So we'll see you all in just a few minutes' time. And we're back for the second half of tonight's Polis Box Live. It's the series finale. It's Twice Upon a Time in the company of Pete, Dillon-Trenchard, Dan, Pinn and Mark Harrison. Right, without any further ado, should we just crack on with the trial? Dan, you're next up. What's your next point for the prosecution of Twice Upon a Time, mate?
Yeah, I think one thing I want to highlight is the and I guess this story isn't alone in this because it's a Moffat trope that he's kind of weaved all throughout his era, but it's the Doctor of War. I'm not I can't say that I'm a massive fan of that concept that the Doctor is a warrior or a soldier. He's this Doctor of War, because that feels quite alien from the whole concept of what Doctor Who is. And yeah, sure, the Doctor faces enemies that have extreme and violent ways of basically conquering and subduing other people. And so that means that at times the Doctor has, and only as a last resort, sometimes has to mirror their kind of actions. But not 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, he doesn't resort to those things. He does something clever, or he tricks them into doing something else. So this concept of the Doctor is a Doctor of War, and then this is the last time we probably see it, because obviously it's the last of the Moffat era. But it's obviously meant to be this kind of wake-up call for the first Doctor to kind of stop sitting on the sidelines and be more proactive. But I think it feels like Moffat is kind of like he's kind of missed the point of the first Doctor, but it also feels like with this concept he's also missed the point of what the Doctor actually is and what the Doctor stands for, and it certainly isn't a warrior. He basically is a man that stands up to bullies, and sometimes when you stand up to bullies, you have to punch back, but that doesn't make that person a bully, and therefore it doesn't make the Doctor a warrior or a soldier or this Doctor of War concept. So this is something that's never really sat well with me, and I think because this is the last time we see it, and also it's kind of used in quite a big way, and kind of, like I say, that kind of wake-up call for the first Doctor. I just find this concept really, really alien to the ethos of what the Doctor is, and I don't understand where Moffat was coming from when he first brought it in, weaved it through his era, and then this is the sort of, I suppose, the natural conclusion of that, because it just doesn't feel like what the Doctor is. He isn't someone that resorts to war. He tries to find a clever or a peaceful solution to it, but sometimes, as you know, you have to hit back and use, fight fire with fire. So this is one thing that I feel, it is another thing that really takes me out of this episode, and it just kind of adds to that kind of, again, food analogies, that recipe, that cake that we're kind of baking with this episode. It kind of just, again, it's another unpalatable thing that kind of gives me indigestion with this when I try to swallow this. So yeah, it's the Doctor of War. I just do not understand it.
But the Doctor of War is only one of many nicknames that they mention.
Yeah,
I know it, and I mean, when it gets brought back at the end, it's kind of very much explained that the Doctor of War does not mean that he's a warrior. He's the guy who, saves people.
But what's the point of using that as, because it, earlier on,
the first Doctor, frankly,
it's kind of
the Doctor of War.
It's basically saying that he is a warrior. Yeah, but again, that's another Moffat trope. It's another Moffat creation. We when you think of the people that kind of were Doctor over a long period of time.
The thing is, it's not Moffat's creation, though. Is he, as a showrunner, he inherits a Time War from Russell T Davies. Like the way to get rid of Gallifrey is that he's been a soldier, he's done that, and the way that over his era he deals with that, the Doctor as a soldier, is to completely reverse the original sin of the show, which is the Doctor killed all the kids on Gallifrey. Is to find a way to work back to that, and again, working through what this Doctor of War thing means from that, what it means in this episode. And I get what you mean. I agree with you that, like, it's not what Doctor Who is, except that Doctor Who is umpteen different shows like a bunch of kids sit on top of each other in a trench coat. It's not all one show. So for the first Doctor to meet the 12th Doctor, you kind of got to draw a line between the two. The first Doctor would be maybe mortified to discover if they showed him clips of him in a clown coat, you know, stabbing people in the leg and making James Bond quips, he might be mortified. But it's, you know, because it's a university study, these are just the names that this character has been given. That's what it is. But I think, as Pete said, it's answered by the end of the show. The actual line, isn't it, is that the first Doctor says to the captain, you know, life often fails to be, like, life isn't always a fairy tale, to which 12 can tell him, with the benefit of the hopes and fears of all the years, if you want to get Christmassy about it, is that, you know, life does often fail to be a fairy tale, and that's where the Doctor comes in.
That's what it means to be a Doctor of War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, because the War Doctor, the way, you know, the whole point of the War Doctor was that all of the other Doctors reacted strongly against him.
Yeah, he was a bit nice,
one
wasn't
Doctor
he?
who was absolutely a warrior.
Yeah,
you know, these guys were like, no, we've shunned you, we've repressed you from the canon. You know.
But again, that's another Moffat creation, that there was this Doctor that kind of
created specifically to be distinct from the Doctor's regular character.
Yeah, and to answer the Time War, which he didn't create.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's still the thing. It's sort of like when you think of the Doctor, you don't think of him as a warrior or anything of war, because the majority of the time he's kind of taking a route of pacifism.
Yeah,
you know, if he can find
in between shooting people.
Chris Eccleston stood there shouting, "I saw it happen! I made it happen!" I mean, you know, that was RTD.
But he had post-traumatic stress from, you know, what he saw, what he witnessed.
It's a different show than it is to the Moffat one. Like I said, this is the thing about Doctor Who, is it's this thing we've watched because it's all in linear order, because none of it is a prequel to anything else. If you want to watch from the beginning or listen to it from the beginning, if you haven't heard of Ian Levine's things, then you can. But, you know, it's in order to do this story, and the idea is that when it was first mooted, when Moffat said he thought what would be the ideal 50th anniversary, and he said it would be the first Doctor meeting the current Doctor, and that's what you get. But in the you have to reconcile everything that's happened in the meantime if you're going to acknowledge that it's that, and that's all it is. It's someone getting. It's like, to use another Horiel Moffat trope, it's spoilers for the first Doctor. It's a guy who's, like, you know, been gadding around Marco Polo and fucking around the Keys of Marinus, like seeing something like that he's going to become over thousands of years, and being a little bit like, oh.
I mean, I've got some lyrics here that kind of sum up this whole thing. If, you know, the Doctor's different things at different times. You know, I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a child, a mother, I'm a sinner, I'm a saint, I do not feel ashamed. I'm your hell, I'm your dream, I'm nothing in between. You know you wouldn't want it any other way.
That was about 15 things, so now we just have to figure out which one's which. Who's a bitch?
Tell you one thing it was, it's a reference for the teenagers. That's what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, PDT, the kids.
Enjoy that one,
really
kids.
interested in that, won't they?
I'm blowing up on TikTok.
Two people are definitely interested in what Dan was saying. Is first up, only Mr. Joe Ford, who says Dan is right. Moffat inherited the Time War. He didn't inherit the Doctor of War. Until then, it was just a Doctor involved in a rhyme.
What?
There we go. That's what Joe's going to say. And Harry Hussey is in your corner as well, Dan. Except he's not saying he's a Doctor of War. He's more a Doctor of War, depending on who floats one's boats. Even McCoy stuffing a ferret down his pants might have his admirers. The most erotic a Doctor's ever been. Is that a ferret in his trousers, or is he just pleased to see us? Why not both? So there we go. Right. Any more on that note? Any more on that point? Have we got anything more to chuck into the mix on that one?
No, I'd just say that I probably agree with Dan. I think the War Doctor is not really the Doctor. It's not the way the Doctor's ever meant to be. It was thrown in there. And even when we get to meet the War Doctor, he steps up and becomes the War Doctor because his home planet's been invaded and children and women are threatened. The innocents are being threatened. and that's when he steps up and does the violent things that he has to do. Which
This episode
every other
explains
doctor,
he's not a warrior.
but it's what every other doctor does as well. So why do they invent the War Doctor when every doctor fights against the Daleks, fights against the Cybermen?
Because there wasn't a Time War before. There wasn't everybody's dead explicitly stated in the thing, and that the Doctor did it. You have to sort of reckon, or rather, you don't have to. Chose to do it because, good God, Day of the Doctor's good. Can we talk about Day of the Doctor for a bit instead? Because it's a 50th anniversary of a show that's just like about a guy who goes around trying to make things better and has infinite time to make things better, doing just that. Wow, what an episode! This is also good.
Yes, Day of the Doctor is not on trial here, as somebody says in the comments.
Yeah, Gareth has made the point that we're only talking about the episode in hand, so these are all well-known Polis Fox catchphrase. Gareth also does make a good point. We should thank Pete for this, that he has got us off the hook tonight. He says we don't need to do walking in the air now. He's given us the mid-of the lyrics. So thanks, Pete. You've saved a lot of people.
Saved Christmas.
That terrible, terrible fight. Saved Christmas. More tree bake for you. Right then. Talking of Pete, let's go to him. Next point for the defence, please, Pete, if you will, please.
I mean, my point is basically the whole of the final 10 minutes. Because it's so beautiful and it never fails to make me tear up in multiple places. I mean, first of all, you've got the resolution of the captain's plot. And the whole thing about, my name's Lethbridge Stewart, looking on my family. That hits. That's the first moment that hits. And the hits just keep on coming, and they don't stop coming. I'm not gonna do it.
But, I thought you were about to go into All Star there.
I was very tempted. But they do, you then obviously get the first Doctor and the 12th Doctor sort of reconciling, and the whole bit about, okay, I see now that you're not a warrior, guys. You're not a warrior. This is, the Doctor of War is about saving people. That's what that means. And I think I'm ready to go and regenerate. So you get that poignant moment for the first Doctor. And obviously you then see him go off and become 60s footage and regenerate. And then you're left with Peter Capaldi and Bill Potts taking one last stroll. And that's when the floodgates just open, because it for a start, seeing these, as I said before, seeing these two characters reunited one last time, it's beautiful. They had such a great relationship, in a way that him and Clara never did. Although we're going to get on to that in a sec. They have this lovely chat, and Bill manages, the whole thing of this is me, we are memories. This is this is who I am. And the whole thing about letting the Doctor go, which, even if you don't buy into the idea of Capaldi's Doctor not letting the Doctor, maybe that's a bit of a conceit, but Bill absolutely means it. And then, you get the kiss and Clara in her weird bit of stock footage. Well, not stock footage, but in her weird bit of sort of clearly out of place footage, but it works. Obviously she wasn't there on set, but maybe she didn't even need to appear for the resonance to hit, but you get him getting his memories back of those times, and those were so important to him as a character, and that hits. And then, oh my God, Nardol's back, and the trio's reunited. Now, I mean, there was such a wonderful trio, Bill, Nardole, and the Doctor. That for me, they really worked. They were the best thing about Series 10 by a long way.
I know I'm supposed to remain impartial on these proceedings, but I'm with you here, Pete. That very on-Capaldi moment where he says, "Thank you for everything you were to me." That's just
that line. That I've used that line in life, and it's on the odd occasion. That is such a beautiful. Yeah, thank you for everything that you were to me. Acknowledging that times have passed, things aren't what they are, but just one last hey, those times we had together, they were great. Gareth says Nardell's hair comment. Yeah, great little joke in amidst all of the sap going on. And cuddles. Oh, it's beautiful. And then where I go alone, and they disappear. And I'm sorry, I will not hear a word against that final speech, set to the Shepherd's Boy, which is easily Murray Gold's best track of the 12th Doctor era. And he gives that speech beautifully. Yeah, I know he's invested in it, but as an actor, but it's just that wonderful thing of it's so dynamic, and you're moving around the TARDIS, and then obviously his kidneys give out, which is a callback to his very first scene. And yeah, I mean that line about the universe one last, that's not a perfunctory line. That's a brilliant line. And there's lines to live life by. Never eat pears. But the whole thing of try to be nice but never fail to be kind. Oh, and then he regenerates, and you've got this wonderful, wonderful cliffhanger of the Doctor being ejected from the TARDIS without a sonic screwdriver, without a plan, and you're left going, how are they going to... It's going to have to be such brilliant writing to resolve that cliffhanger effectively. It's such a wonderful cliffhanger, and that's where we end, because luckily the resolution to the cliffhanger isn't in this one, so it doesn't count when judging it. It's just a wonderful final 10 minutes, and I hope I've brought the magic of it over to you there.
Yeah. Okay, prosecution, argue against the heartfeltest 10 minutes of joy and love, you monsters. On you go.
Well, about 5 minutes of it was Capaldi's speech, which just kind of rambled and kept going.
I could have had more.
And there was the really nice emotional scenes with Nardole and Bell, where the Moffat just goes, you know what, this is a really touching, gentle, nice scene. I'm just going to shit on it and mention Nardole's glass nipples, because why the fuck not?
Why is that shitting on it?
That's who Nardole was. Exactly, why is that shitting on it? Yeah.
Just to respond to just to go back over the Doctor of War thing, like the aftermath of that scene is Capaldi has that amazing line where he goes, but to be fair, they cut out all the jokes. And this is where I feel like half the negative feedback on this is.
But it's a weird joke to make about Nardole having glass nipples. Because
but it's entirely in keeping with the kind of thing that Nardole would come out with.
Yeah,
like purple hair,
all the anatomical jokes about him throughout his run, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But I feel like this big final emotional scene was ruined by what was a relatively sexualized joke because it involves nipples on the BBC.
Hang on.
And it didn't need to be because the hair was enough. The hair would have been enough. Because that's very Nardole. Nobody else can see it, just me, and it's purple. Yes, very Nardole joke. He's got glass nipples. What the fuck? That just comes out of nowhere and doesn't work for me.
It's funny, and it doesn't make the scene any less emotional, surely.
I'm not trying to do one of those like line drop, can we call the episode this things? What, are nipples inherently sexual?
Mine are.
It's going on the list, Dan. It's in there with the tray bake. Not that like.
Are Matt Lewis's nipples inherently sexual?
I'm writing it down as we speak.
But
sorry,
I think Dave's right though, because it's a mood killer. Because we're in that emotion. We're in that moment of this lovely kind of wrapping up of the Capaldi era, and then all of a sudden Moffat just can't help himself, and he has to drop in something inappropriate
that's reminding us of what their friendship was like.
It's a sitcom joke. It's a cheap sitcom joke thrown into a big emotional end of Doctor scene.
It's just unnecessary.
Yeah,
comedy and tragedy are not
is a script. That's Moffat's stock and trade, though. He is a sitcom writer. That's what he's most.
Yeah, and it's great. He brings all that trade over to Doctor Who. The thing of like the gift of like set up and punchline is whether it's on like a macro scale or within a scene, is really useful for Doctor Who. Like Robert Holmes once said the rate in Doctor Who is walking a tightrope between Monty Python and Grant Gignall, and I think the Monty Python side of that has always been more important than the, oh, this is scary and serious. And I don't think that, like, I can't get on board with jokes, like the idea that jokes spike the emotion, especially not those jokes and that scene. It's a guy as he is, as we know that guy.
The inverse of it would be Blackadder, where you've got all these jokes and then one serious line that brings you right down to earth with it. And this is the opposite. You're already right down to earth and emotional and you're feeling all of this, and then there's one cheap sitcom joke that takes me all the way back out of it.
Well, the joke comes before the actual emotional crux of it, of the, thank you for all you were to me, and that, Nardole saying cuddle.
But it's in that scene. So that whole emotional scene for me is ruined by that.
Isn't that what you just said Blackadder was? Like, there's jokes and then there's a line that brings the emotion of it.
Yes, but it's the way that Blackadder was done was the way it should be done. Where the jokes are part of the scene and they're inherent. They're not a sudden throwaway jammed in because you want to put a joke in the scene because you like writing jokes. And that's what that felt like to me.
I don't think that's how he writes. But,
jokes there because it's Nardole being Nardole. Nardole was not a serious character most of the time. It's, that's not why he was there.
Okay. Anything more to add on that point then before we move on?
I'm just going to say, Joe, you seem like a really nice guy, but you're talking a load of rubbish.
In the comments.
Sorry.
Well, let's add some context to that, because Joe Ford has been in touch to say, Poundland, Hartnell and Sonny's with added sexism. Jolly good smacked bottoms all round. It's the average night out with Joe, really, isn't it?
It's the comment
Gareth Foley doesn't
that,
go into... Oh, right, hang on, I'll go back. Let me see, where are we?
Bring it on, up. Bitch.
The last comment from Joe?
At 9:50.
Ah, there we go. There we are. That's the one. So has there ever been a Christmas special this bereft of entertainment or a plot or a point or fun?
Yeah, Revolution of the Daleks. Oh, sorry, that was New Year, wasn't it?
I'll happily exceed the plot. The plot point, fine. There's a bit of a plot, but I get it. Yeah, that's not what it's about. But the rest of it, no, not at all. I'm not having that.
Okay. Gareth Bowley's asking us a big question. So it says that anyone else anxious in what happened to the Doctor's ring after it dropped? Not that sort of show, Gareth.
I remember there being speculation about that, wasn't it? Of course there is. Yeah.
Lucy Saxon picked it up and added it to the
Right then, let's move on from such filth. Let's go to the next point for the prosecution. Dave, what you got?
I'm going to pick up on Joe's point, and it's about the complete lack of any story in this. Doctor Who Christmas specials are standalones that you can watch without having seen anything else. And they've usually got one hook, and it's like the Titanic in space, or floating sharks and singing, or Poundland Superman. And this doesn't have one. It's meant to be the Christmas special where we see the Doctor save the world or the people from the big bad. Instead, we get speeches from Capaldi and a crystalline entity that was the friends we made along the way, apparently. And even the traditional Christmas Dalek is also a friend. But I was trying to work out what the one-sentence description for this episode/story would be, and I couldn't come up with it. It's like, is it war is bad? But no, it's not that, because that's not the story. The story is, and I kind of kept falling over because I couldn't work out what the actual story of this episode is. Like,
Two doctors.
That's what happens.
What's
the story? What do the two doctors do? What is the point of them being in this episode?
Two doctors regenerating.
I think we're talking about different... Sorry, have you finished your point, Dave? Sorry, I don't want to jump in.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, I think it's the difference between story and plot. Plot being what happens, and granted, this is, again, I'm Like, the defense is not saying this is a perfect episode. We will pull in stuff that the prosecution hasn't mentioned, like Moffat saying that he thought this one was a little bit baggy in the middle. What does he know? He only wrote it. Plot is what happens in terms of the event, which is, they go to Villengard, they bounce around, they meet a crystalline entity who's the friends we meet along the way, and they end up in a very nice, how have they not done this in a Christmas special type thing yet? The story is, much as the blurb on the back of the DVD will tell you, is two doctors resisting regeneration at opposite ends of their life, much as the story of It's a Wonderful Life as a man who lives in a small town, doesn't do anything, realizing there's actually worth in his life. He doesn't leave town at the end. Yeah. That's not the happy ending. And anyone will tell you, this isn't that's not a happy end. I say not anyone. Dumb media lecturers will say, oh, can I just shock you? It's not a happy ending. It's not a feel-good ending. He'll never get away from the people he loves. We'll say that. And I think it's the difference between plot and story. This is a plot-like story. The stakes, the low stakes in it are... Again, I'm going to come back to Comfort Watch. And I'm going to say this, it's not filler, it's filling. That's what Doctor Who is. There's no filler Doctor Who there. It's just filling Doctor Who. I'm getting filthy again with 2 L's. What I'm saying is the difference between plot and story. The story of this, when you get a little bit of extra story, and the story costs that into it, that the series itself, the franchise itself is paused, that Jodie's not here till next October, it's what you can do within that space.
So yeah, there's no way to describe this. If you'd seen this and you wanted to tell your friends the next day or the next week at work what happened to the Christmas special, you can't do it in 2 sentences.
Oh, right, so that's the thing. Right, but then equally, if you want them to watch this one, they won't have to watch the series before. And this is unique as a Christmas special. It's unique as a regeneration episode. It's not the big blockbuster type thing. It's a lower key type thing. But, if you're asking who it's for, Doctor Who fans...
Yes, which is not what a Christmas episode should be.
Christmas there were lots of jokes, and one of them, and the Doctor said goodbye. The end.
But being that it is this, does that make it guilty of crimes against Doctor Who because we're worried what the appreciation index would be, or the ratings?
I don't care about the appreciation or the ratings. What I care about,
well, the water cooler effect then,
is me sitting watching this with my in-laws at their house on Christmas Day. And the credits roll and they look at me and I go, because I've no idea. Like, Christmas specials are good, enjoyable stories with a feel-good ending. And this isn't. It's not a Christmas special.
It's not Doctor Who's fault that your in-laws aren't drunk enough yet.
They are.
So to ask you again, the 3 times that you rewatched it for this, were you still so in that feeling that you couldn't get past it?
To an extent, yes, because obviously my wife asks me which episode we're doing next, and I tell her, and she always goes, "Oh, I don't remember that one."
Oh, like which one?
Yeah, it's the one where, and it's really hard to describe what this one is.
No, it isn't.
Like, you can go, it's the one with the black hole at the other end of the ship, and Bill gets turned into a Cyberman. Or you can go, it's the one where he's trapped in a weird castle for 1,000 years and punches the wall. It's a fucking weird one. This one you go...
what it is in 2 sentences several times now.
Yeah, it's the one where he meets the first Doctor and then regenerates at the end.
Yeah.
Yes. It's Capaldi's regeneration, but not the one that was written as his last episode. It's the one after that. Which, again, makes no sense.
Bit of a mouthful.
We didn't regenerate in that, as we've... Yeah.
Yes. So that's my point.
It's not with the first Doctor. He just says it's the one with the first Doctor.
Yeah.
There you go. Case closed.
Yep. Then I shall remove my point.
Snap into the point. Okay, on that point, anything else to chuck in? Anyone?
No.
No?
Anyone at all?
Dan?
No,
no?
On that point.
Mark?
Nope.
No,
Anyone?
Sorry, I thought you meant,
Okay.
I thought you meant the next point, sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, talking of the next point, it is your turn again. Now, you'd say you burned through all your points. Have you got anything to chuck in, Mark?
Christmas! Yeah, it's just the...
Let's round off the trial. Let's have one more point if you've got it, mate.
Yeah, so again, the Christmas special of it, the aspect of it to me, like it's the sort of, I'm sort of circling back around. It happens just before the last 10 minutes. I had to go check on the timer. So the Silent Night scene, like as someone said in the comments there, an alternate ending could be that the 12th Doctor just tips up at the end of Blackadder because it is, it is World War I again. But this is obviously this is one of those things that's just like, how have you never done it in Doctor Who before? And at the time it was getting done, it's almost like a bucket list thing of like, this is the last, you know, if Chris Chibnall doesn't want to do Christmas specials, what can we do in this one? If this is essentially going to be the last one for the foreseeable future. And as a climax to the episode, it's like, which as I say is a plot light episode, and I think one that's richer in story. It's about remembrance and about reflection. Ending where it does with the, you know, as much as the situation is very much, exterior quarry and two Capaldi era writers sat with revolvers opposite each other in a little quarry. When it builds up to it, when that moment hits, it's really well done. And it's something that, the thing I was saying earlier about the Doctor as a folkloric figure, landing in the middle of this moment that is history, but is almost folklore in itself. Like by the time we get to this, we've had, 2014, there was the Sainsbury's Christmas advert that did this and kind of drew very mixed reviews. And I think this runs the risk of doing that. And I think the way it's mounted and set up is really well done. And in such a Doctor Who way, it's Rachel Talalay doing the lowest budget episode she'd have done, because she's done 3 big finales and then would come back to do the Star Beast. So you've kind of got this situation where it's kind of all, there are all these rumors behind the scenes about how the edit came out and whether there was a longer version that was supposed to come out, and I haven't found loads to back that up, so I won't comment on it other than what's in the hour that we see. And the point that I've made so many times is it's an extra hour with these characters, and it's them at their best. But it's them. It's these characters who I personally really like, so I'll withdraw that. It's these versions of these characters I personally really like, and it's another hour. And in that magic hour, the way that it chooses to end is on a moment of empathy, of what gives context to all of that Doctor of War business, what gives context to what this is worth traveling for, what gives context to a guy who doesn't want to regenerate, just wants to die, doesn't, the hook at the end of the Doctor Falls is saying, I can't go on being other people, realizing what the point of carrying on is.
You see, I didn't think the World War I stuff was done that well. I mean, yes, it looks like they're in a muddy field, but everyone remembers that Christmas armistice where they famously struggled to get a game of 5-a-side because there was only 10 of them in the entire scene. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, see, this sort of, aside from that's what I was going to say is, in contrast, I think this is the scene that has all the extras, and a lot of it is, sets. And you've got you've got Dalek stood in a room, or you've got some interior, and you've got some exterior villain guards type shots that are all on set. You have this well-executed moment at the end where you do need the extras. But what I was saying about the folklore aspect of it is this thing we all know about, that there was a Christmas armistice and that they played football and stuff, and that in the context of Doctor Who, you can stage that. You can do that as a conclusion to the story about folkloric characters moving through real history. And I think it's a beautiful, it's a moment that you would think they would have done in a Christmas special before now. And I think when they do pull it off, it's quintessential Doctor Who.
Yeah. I think my problem with it goes back to the problem of the War Doctor. I don't see the Capaldi Doctor at all viewing the armistice as a nice and good thing, because literally the next day they go back to fucking slaughtering each other.
Yeah.
So you show Capaldi that, he would just tear up with anger and rage about the fact that they did this armistice and the people decided that the war should stop and it's a beautiful thing. And they went, you know what, give me that gun. And I think that would enrage Capaldi. I don't think Capaldi's Doctor would actually think that was great. And it would be all, yes, saluting to the troops. Because that's not Capaldi's Doctor.
He salutes to the captain, he doesn't salute to
the armistice was a moment of beauty in a horrible horror. I mean, and from the Doctor's perspective, it's not something he can do anything about. It's not like the Zygon thing where he could have an influence. This is a fixed point or whatever. It's history, and it's a beautiful moment in a horrible, bloody conflict, and he sees the beauty in that.
See, yes, it is a beautiful moment, but I don't. I think what takes me out of this is the fact that the way that No Man's Land is depicted doesn't feel very sort of accurate, because when you see pictures of it and with those illustrations, it's basically hell on earth. It's like mud that you would wade through. There would be pools of water everywhere and all this sort of thing. Whereas what you get here just feels like a car park with a bit of gravel and some barbed wire strewn around for good measure. And again, it's sort of like going back to Blackadder. Blackadder goes forth. There's a studio set. It's 20 odd years ago, but it looks more convincing than this version of No Man's Land. And you know, again, I suppose the visual shouldn't detract from the message, but sometimes it does, and it gets in the way. And I think, you know, again, it feels like, you know, we've got bugger all money to do this well, but we're going to do it anyhow and do it half-assed. And that just kind of feels like this whole episode in general is no one wanted to do it. They hadn't budgeted for it, and therefore we end up with this sort of substandard kind of version of Doctor Who.
It's a separate commission. It's not going to be a high budget thing, but it's not by any means. We have to do it with the money we've got left. Like what I'm saying when I say this is with, you know, the elements that you have where they left off, is that they can mount this. And as I said, they've got the context going in of knowing with the incoming regime not doing Christmas specials that they can do this. And it is something that, like, that's what I'm saying. If the entire episode was set in No Man's Land, I think you'd have the accuracy thing would be more of a concern for me. And this, I think this manages to go somewhere between that and just being the Sainsbury's Christmas advert type thing. And to the point about, you know, that the Doctor would be angry and upset about this, sure, it's in dialogue, but in the context of just getting a win when he's absolutely knackered, when he's been doing this for hours, when he's been pulled into this time in stasis thing that apparently pissed everyone on the prosecution off more than it pissed me off. You know, when he's been stuck in this, you know, time in stasis thing for hours on end, it's a win. That's all it is in that moment. And the dialogue again. Sorry?
Gareth Bowley's nailed it again.
1008, yeah. Let's have a little look. Imagine a fully rendered No Man's Land in prime family entertainment on Christmas Day.
Yes, thank you, Gareth. Thanks for the assist. That's a much better way of putting it.
Make it happen, you know Russell T. Davis. Make it happen.
They find the ground between doing a Doctor Who version of that and, the Doctor Who version of that is somewhere between the very gritty and realistic version of it and the Sainsbury's Christmas tacky version.
But what's the point in doing it if you're not going to do it well? That's the thing. Like, why aim for mediocre when you can do better?
They're not aiming for mediocre.
I mean, it teaches a lot of people, a lot of kids we were watching about a moment that they won't necessarily have learned about yet. You know,
it doesn't teach them all the truth of it. And I'm not saying it should be Saving Private Ryan.
Teach them all the truth.
But it should be more believable.
I think they can
I don't
get the
see
idea
that it was
war is
unbelievable
bad without seeing, you know, hell on earth. You know, No Man's Land covered miles and miles of ground. You know, we can believe that there was a bit that was a bit less shitty, can't we? You know?
Yeah. But the BBC don't have to choose to show the nicest bit of No Man's Land.
It's not. Hang on. It's not about showing the nice bit of No Man's Land. It's just in the context of this. We're going to do a story in which this happens. But like, it's, as I say, it's building up to that moment. As it's at that point, it's a win, and maybe there are ways that could have gone a lot tackier. And again, I'm not saying like damn it with faint praise, or it could have been a lot worse. I'm saying it is, to me, quintessential Doctor Who. It's someone with the time to make it right, with the ability to make it right, not being stuck in a false equivalence of a choice of we have to send this man to get shot in the face by Toby Whithouse. I'm still not trying to do episode titles, but put it on the list, please. Shot in the face by Toby Whithouse. This, you know, we don't. It's not a false equivalence of like, oh well, better things aren't possible. And I think that at the end of a knackered 12th Doctor's life is in keeping with his character.
I mean, let's face it. You don't want. Should we take one last stroll, Miss Potts? Oh, just step over the severed limbs and the. Oh, mind that head. you don't want that. I mean.
Okay. Anything more to chuck in on that point before we go to summings up? Are we all good?
No.
Okay. Right. In that case, then let's begin the summons up. Then we'll go to Dan first. Dan, do you want to give us your summing up as to why Twice Upon a Time is guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, please?
Yeah, I think I go back to that first point. It was the Doctor Who episode that no one really wanted to write, and I think that kind of shows in all kind of aspects of it. Whether it's the representation of the First Doctor and the Doctor in general, whether it's the way that it kind of looks, the lack of story, the lack of plot. It's just sort of like it is what it is. It's an afterthought and treading water between the end of the Doctor Falls and the beginning of Jodie becoming the Doctor, and I think because of that, I feel that it is guilty, because it just kind of falls apart and fails on quite a few levels.
Okay. All right then, Dave, as co-prosecutor, do you want to give us your reasons why Twice Upon a Time is guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, please?
Largely, they are mostly the same. There's no story of this. It's a Christmas special with very little to do with Christmas. It's an assassination on the First Doctor. I don't know why you'd use the episode most likely to be watched by casual viewers to attack your own show, because that's what they basically do. They change him. It's got so much talent in this, but they forgot to think of a story. And yeah, nobody wanted to make it, so it was Moffat writing an episode for himself. This isn't even fan wank. This is Moffat writing for himself. He puts his friends in it. He puts all the in-jokes he can think of into it and all the references he can think of, and he gets his mate, the actor, to help him write the big final speech. It's Moffat wank. It's not even fan wank. It's all for him because maybe he felt like he was doing the BBC a favour by doing it. I don't know. But by the time it's done, it doesn't bring anything new to Doctor Who. It doesn't improve Doctor Who. If anything, it reduces Doctor Who to less than it was before. And I think for that reason, it's guilty.
Okay, 2 strong summons up for the prosecution. Let's move to the defence then. Mark, do you want to give us your summing up as to why Twice Upon a Time is not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, please?
Yep, sure. Doctor Who is neither advert for Doctor Who nor attack on itself. Like, people didn't, writing and making Doctor Who didn't like Doctor Who. They could just go and do something else. Stephen Moffat went off to go and write several series and stuff. This is a labour of love, this episode. And, I've mentioned It's a Wonderful Life a lot in this one. The other thing that looms large in this is the film. Have you seen A Matter of Life and Death? Anyone on the chat? Anyway, so this film about David Niven plays a World War II pilot who is, missed, basically similarly to the captain, and this is sort of missed by, is supposed to die and ends up adjudicating against heaven over hours that he should never have had. This is an hour of Doctor Who that we should never have had, and that does not therefore make it guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. It's something that is doing stuff that is on theme, that is interested in the character and wrapping up the character and taking the moments of grace that wouldn't have fit well at the end of a bombastic finale and making the most of it. It's assassination. It's alleged assassination on the First Doctor is nothing different from what other multi-Doctor specials have done with the character, be it even Moffat's own ones. There's Time Crash, which is the comedy sketch version, and there's Day of the Doctor, which is the big anniversary jamboree. And this, again, lies somewhere between the two. Like, neither advert nor attack. It's like the First Doctor in this is a character. The interesting thing, the drama, the story, if not the plot, is connecting the dots between that man who is there at the start of the series and what that character has become, ready for the renewal at the end of something completely different. I think that's really well done, and it's not guilty.
Okay, and finally, last but not least, PDT. Let's have your summing up as to why Twice Upon a Time is not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, please.
As someone once said, it has no call to be here, yet the art of it lies in the fact that it is here. As with so many other times across Doctor Who, it wasn't meant to happen. It wasn't meant to be Stephen Moffat, but it did. And circumstances have borne something lovely, a coda to the 12th Doctor's era that hits so many emotional notes. It has a story. The story is a character piece about the Doctor coming to his end. Seeing how far he's come. It's a great multi-Doctor story. I think, yes, Hartnell is played up, but he's also not Hartnell. And, it doesn't matter either way. Frankly, nobody's using this as an advert for, now that they're all on iPlayer, apart from the ones that aren't. Maybe they would use it, but they're not. Nobody's saying, go back and watch Ben Cook's The Daleks in Colour based on this. It's just a nice little thing. It's all about the 12th Doctor. It's the first Doctor. It's Bill Potts. Another hour of the Doctor and Bill Potts. It can't be a crime against Doctor Who because it's so lovely. If you vote for this as a crime against Doctor Who, then you are Andy Frankham-Allen, and I claim my £5.
So there. Right then, those are the summons up. It is now entirely in your hands, audience. So if you've not already done so, you can go and vote in the poll on Twitter. So based on the arguments that the guys have put forward tonight, you get the final say on whether it's guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. Go to @thepolisbox on Twitter or click in the link in the episode description and it'll take you right there. You've got until this ticker at the bottom of the screen disappears during our next break to cast your vote, after which the poll will be closed. The other poll that we've got running tonight is still open, and equally that applies to that as well. So Cameron should be stripped of his series champion title for dereliction of duty and not even bothering to turn up today. He went to the pub. He went to the pub instead of being here. So that power is also in your hands. Same again, @thepolisbox on Twitter. Clicking a link will reveal the results of that in just a short while as well. Before we go to our next little break and reveal the results, time for two contrasting, vivid images to ease you into that break. First up is Joe Ford, who says, Moffat wank, even I wouldn't swallow that. And Merry Christmas. And Daniel Ronsley and Gareth Bowley paint quite a sweet little picture here. Daniel says, imagine Hartnell popping into an actual Poundland. Gareth saying, his hands fluttering over the bargains as he giggles. The Christmas special we should have had. Right then, let's go to a short break. When we come back, we will have the results of both polls and we'll find out what series we'll be doing in the next series of the Polis Box Live. Get your votes in. When the ticker disappears off the bottom of the screen, the poll is closed. We will be back in a few minutes. Wait for the results. And we're back. That is it. The polls have closed. The votes have been cast. The results are in. First of all, it is time to find out whether Twice Upon a Time is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. Here is how you voted. Much to the delight of Pete Dillon-Trenchard and to Mark Harrison, and indeed to Cameron Phillips, it's been found not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who by 69% to 31%. It goes into our unofficial canon of Doctor Who, and it means that Cam takes the series into double digits by winning 10-3 overall. So, Pete, Mark, you must be delighted with the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what should have happened. I don't know how much of an influence we had either way because the episode was just that good.
I had a lovely time chatting about it, even if I had a very intense day. Sorry if I got a bit shirty at points, but yeah, off for a victory. Thanks, everyone.
Dave, Dan, any words or better recommendations you want to cast at our audience who voted against you?
Doctor Who fans like Doctor Who and shocker, says headline. Same as it has been throughout this fucking series when I keep losing.
I'm glad you've had a nice time, Dave. Dan, how do you feel about that result, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those things. It was always going to be in the balance. It was well argued by the defence, and I just want to apologise to Dave that I couldn't get us over that over the line. But yeah.
Yeah, done your best, and that's all that matters, mate.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's not the only poll we had running tonight, because Cameron plainly couldn't be arsed to turn up and take his series win into double figures. We put the question to you earlier on whether Cameron should be stripped of his series title as a result. So let's find out how you voted. Should Cameron have his title taken from him? These are the results.
Well done.
Closer than the actual episode.
You bunch of cowards. We gave you one chance and one chance only, and you let him off the hook. Some people. I wonder about our viewers, you know. Fair enough. I mean, he did win the Series 10 free, so it's only right that Cameron does take the series crown. And as series champion, he gets the decision of where we go next for Series 5 of the Polis Box Live. So it's time to reveal what that series is going to be. We'll transport you all the way across time and space to a kitchen in Kirtlebridge.
Hello, folks. Fake PDT here. Hi. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight. It coincides with my staff night out, so I'll be missing the season finale of this season of the Polis Box. Before I go into what we're doing next, because as series winner I get the pleasure of choosing, just to say, and I'm sure I speak for Lee and Dave as well when I talk about this, a big thank you to everyone who has watched and contributed to this season of the Polis Box. So far, it's been a bit of an undertaking. It's been 6 months of doing Capaldi's last season. It's been an absolute riot all the way. I absolutely love doing the Polis Box every single fortnight. It's brilliant. It brightens up my life something great. So there you go. As for where we're going next, we wanted to do classic, I think, was a general gist, because after you've done a modern, it's it's a bit fresh air to do a classic and vice versa, and flip between the two. Usually we try and do something maybe a little bit shorter. Also, me and Dave are probably swapping over places, so I'll be prosecuting, he'll be defending. So my pick for the next season of the Polis Box is season 7 in Old Money. We're going to do some Pertwee, and if I'm prosecuting, there's going to be nothing like trying to take down a spearhead from space first episode. Nice. Hope it's been a good one. I'll be back for the Christmas special, and I shall see you then. Bye for now.
He was reading all that off cue cards from his garage, you know. He's taking the Hartnell thing just to the next level. Said some sexist stuff that we had to cut out as well.
Yep.
It's just what he's like.
Yep.
So there you go then. Series 5 of the Polis Box Live will be Series 7 on Old Money. So we'll be doing Pertwee's first series as the Doctor. So we'll be doing Spearhead from Space, Doctor Who and the Silurians, The Ambassadors of Death, and Inferno for our next 4 episodes. So there's plenty to look forward to there. We've got guests lined up already because we had to do that to get them booked. We had to let the cat out of the bag. Some returning faces, some newbies, and one particular face will be familiar to a lot of people will be joining us. So that's all from February the 6th.
Is it Dan Hadley?
We'll come back. One day. One day.
And only one.
Maybe. And only one, yeah. So there you go. That's what we're going to be doing next. As for tonight, Pete, Dan, Mark, thanks a million for joining us. It's been a lot of fun.
Been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to have you. We always get guests to plug anything they're involved in. So, Pete, is there anything you're involved in you want to let our viewers know about?
I'm just blowing up on the TikTok. No, I'm over on TikTok. I've moved over there. PDT Ponders. I sometimes post Doctor Who bits, like weird facts and stuff, and just a lot of general messing about. It's fun. Come on down.
I think I think I speak for most of our viewers when I say to you, bring back the totally made up Doctor Who thing. We demand more. Do more. Do more.
6 years is
Mark,
too long to
what
wait.
How about you, Mark?
I'm joining the call to bring back the totally made up Doctor Who episode guide, as well as doing stuff over at Film Stories, both on the website and on the magazine. Do a weekly film quiz on there and write about films, occasionally about Doctor Who. And then otherwise, I'm Mark Harrison on Blue Sky. Just the name, just Mark Harrison. That's pretty much it. That's all I got going on.
There we go. And finally, Dan, how about you?
Yeah,
how about you, Dan?
I'm on,
what you got going on?
Yeah, well, I'm on most of the social media channels. Now and again, I do illustrations. I haven't done one for a while, but I've just joined up with the Hamster Book Club. So I'm one of those. So we just had a new episode released on Sunday, I think it was. So we're going to be doing those once a month. So yeah. So you might hear a bit more of me.
We all want to hear a bit more of Dan Pinn.
Well, yeah, no, that's if you want
That's
to.
what we want. Public demands it. Oh, we do. What about you, Dave? Anything you want to plug? Any podcasts you're involved in?
Just this one. Bit pointless plugging this one on this one. So yeah, nothing.
Oh, okay. It felt rude not to ask you as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's it for tonight. Finally, as Cam alluded to in his video, we'd like to say a big thank you from myself, Dave and Cam, to everyone who's watched the series of the Polis Box Live, to those of you who sent in your viewer evidence and your comments during the live shows, and to everyone who's guested on this series, namely Joe Ford, Andy Kent, Kevin Greenan, Luke Malloy, Richie Morgan, Rod Brown, Daniel Ronsley, Dylan Rees, Mark Donaldson, Cy Hart, Mikey Smith, Charlie from the Complete Menagerie Almost, Fraser Gregory, Dave Rennie, Pete Lambert, Hannah Cooper, and of course Pete, Mark and Dan tonight. But Series 7 of Doctor Who isn't going to be our next stopping off point, because we'll be back a week tonight for the Polis Box Christmas special of 2024. Well, we'll be taking a leaf out of 1914's book and having a day of peace and harmony. But we'll not be putting an episode of Doctor Who on trial. Instead, we're going to have a special episode where we attempt to rewrite the entirety of the classic series of Doctor Who, wiping the slate clean entirely and building it from the ground up. We'll be doing that in the company of Joe Ford, Mark Donaldson and Dylan Rees, and hopefully in your company too. It's either going to be a lot of fun or an absolute train wreck, like most episodes of the Polis Box. So that's a week tonight. At the slightly earlier time of 7:30, we'll be kicking that off. That's it from us. Series 10 is over. Ultimately, I'm not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. Series 7 will be next. But we'll see you a week on Wednesday. Sorry, a week tonight, actually. This is Wednesday.
Yep.
For the Polis Box Christmas edition. Well then, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in. From all of us, we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.